Greetings, everyone, and welcome to an especially clownish edition of Monster Party.
Monster Party! I'm ready to party.
Here we are again.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
We are here.
And what a fun episode we've got ahead of us.
No clowns, though. No clowns.
Well, I don't know about that. But before we even get into any of that nonsense,
who are you, sir?
Let us introduce ourselves. I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James GONIS.
And for a topic, we've got a topic that honestly has nothing to do with the current political situation that we're experiencing right now. And if you feel that it somehow connects itself to that, well, that's just your own.
You're reading into
You're
it.
reading into it.
Because we are not going to deal with
We're not
politics.
doing that
No.
at all.
Apolitical.
Yes.
Apolitical.
Yes.
Our topic for this show is the apocalypse.
The apocalypse! End of the world!
Armageddon.
It's the end of the world. Anything end of the world related, with some caveats, I guess, but we'll argue those as we go along.
Yeah, basically, the premise of the world is somehow the whole world is ending.
On
And
the
in
brink.
some way.
Yeah, and I would say for the most part, we're leaning towards we caused it ourselves, as
for the
opposed
most
to
part.
Are we?
aliens. Well, there could be some exceptions.
but like, is ending or has just ended. You know,
it's recently ended.
The ending is near.
or
it's happening
it's
as we
happened,
speak, or just ended.
It's
Right.
All right, I
Yeah.
think they get the idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for a guest,
Yes.
oh
Don't
boy,
we
this
have-
is a good one
yeah.
because this is someone we've been wanting to have back.
Yes.
Kind of one of those, honorary members of Monster Party. Yeah.
Yeah, he's okay.
Oh, shut up.
Like the fifth cast member.
Yeah, exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, comedian, actor, and the first official clown of Monster Party, Joe DeROSA. Hey, Joe.
Very flattered. Does it? Not everybody gets the honorary member thing.
Not everyone gets that,
no.
and even less get the clown.
And Joe, if
You
I
were the
could-
first. You were the first guest that Larry ever called
really-
a clown.
really insulted to
and
your
you probably
face.
don't even remember it.
Joe, I want to go out of my way to say I apologize.
What did you say? I don't even remember.
I called you a clown.
He goes.
Something that he disagreed with.
You said something about
Stupid.
You,
He said something stupid.
No, already it starts.
I listened to the podcast.
What did I say?
He said you actually had the audacity to give your opinion about something. And Larry, what are you, a clown? And now he's been using it like a sword on every freaking guest that he can get away with.
No, that's not true. What,
I'm
you think
flattered.
A lot of them.
Do you think
No, you're the first, though.
No,
Yeah.
I'm flattered that I'm the first. I mean, I have that effect on people. I truly do bring I've been in confrontations with more people that have made more third parties say, they got mad at you? What did you do?
I witnessed
Always
it.
irritating people.
I witnessed it, and I still didn't get it. Like, what? What? How? That?
I didn't even. You don't need to apologize. Thank you for apologizing, but I didn't even.
Well, you're a guest, and
There was no part of me that left going, that Larry guy, what's his
No,
problem?
it's better that you don't
that'll
remember.
change. Yeah. We have this whole episode to go.
Yeah,
so.
well, I guess I've heard from listeners that I need to, kind of.
You've heard from
just
what,
you
one
know,
and a
maybe
half
I'm a little
listener? Don't change anything, Larry.
We don't want you to change, Larry. Nobody
Yeah.
wants you to change.
We love the fact that you take out your anger on all of us. Every single hidden underbelly of despair that you have in your life, that you vomit that at us.
And you don't hold back at guests.
Well,
and that's
yes.
precious.
And that is precious.
And
So-
it's good that, I mean this sincerely, it's good to have a personality dynamic. It's like not
Right.
everybody.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's good
yeah.
to have a personality.
I
Yes.
agree.
Yes.
We're the ones not telling you to change,
Yeah,
Larry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it works for you guys. I wouldn't change a thing.
Well,
No,
I,
thank you, Joe.
Well, I got to tell you, this is a really great topic, a hot button topic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
so to speak.
I was going through a lot of the movies and things on my list, and
There's a lot, actually. There's
You know,
a lot of different
tons.
interpretations.
But do we
of
want to
how-
talk about, like, because I was thinking when we were talking about this topic, do we want to talk about things that are for example, an alien invasion is almost too, like, there's too many end of the world things if you then include aliens, because, like, any horror movie from the 50s.
Or like War of the Worlds. Is it really an end of the world
Oh, great.
movie, though?
Okay, well, let me just cross that off my list. That's great.
No,
okay,
that's like a topic in itself.
Argue
like
it.
alien invasion.
But argue it.
But is it, do you see it as an end of the world movie?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. See, what you're forgetting, and look, I want to get down to it, okay? Because I do have a list. But just to answer your question, when you say end of the world, imagine that the aliens. Okay, so we're talking about War of the Worlds. This is from 1953.
The only real War of the Worlds movie.
Yeah.
I think
This
so.
is directed by Byron Haskin. This is produced by George Powell, starring wonderful Gene Barry and Ann Robinson, who I met both of them, and they were both lovely. But this was based on the Orson Welles, H.G. Wells version of Martians coming down to our Earth and having all
Trying
this
to take it
destruction.
over.
And it was like a global invasion,
Yeah,
right?
and
Yes.
see, the thing about that movie is when the film was made, it took place in present day Earth. Okay,
Right, they
1953.
updated it to the
Yeah,
time,
exactly.
right.
So it wasn't it didn't have all the vehicles. Exactly. And think about it, Sean. They caused so much destruction. The Martians caused so much destruction. They didn't kill like 100 people. They killed millions of people. And unlike the Tom Cruise film, where they started to do the terraforming thing, which was a little goofy the way that was done.
Right.
But they were trying to get rid of the human race. I wrote something down here about the end of the world as we know it. Either it's the planet or humanity is destroyed by either wars, virus, or natural man-made disasters.
Right.
And so that's kind of like, so that to me...
And you're adding alien.
Well, that's war. I mean,
That's true. That's true. There's a war between,
I think that's interesting, and I support your take on this.
Why, thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
respect your
I'm not,
opinion.
I'm not some kind of clown coming in.
I'll just go.
I support your take on this because I'm just going to throw another possibly controversial apocalypse genre on the table. I thought a lot about this, and I can talk proper apocalypse all night with you guys if you want, but I was thinking about origin apocalypse movies. Those were ones that I found really, like the Dead Zone or like the Omen franchise, where it's about this one guy will bring about the apocalypse if we do not stop this. I think that's an interesting, especially given our current political climate.
Yes, sure.
So what you're saying is like some kind of political figure get into some kind of power and and can kind of like destroy the world.
And you brought up Dead Zone, and Dead Zone,
great movie.
You know, and I love Christopher Walken. in pretty much anything.
That's a great Cronenberg film, too.
Yes, it is.
It's a great Stephen King novel.
And it is.
That's a home run for everybody involved.
Yeah.
But when Walken gets the information that, you know, he has that vision
about Martin Sheen.
Of Martin Sheen.
Yeah.
And Martin Sheen, you probably remember the line better than I do, but where he's like, let the missiles of March fly, or whatever he says.
Right.
And it's so chilling because for me, Martin Sheen is the thing that really makes that moment very iconic. His acting and his ability to portray this guy who is just deranged with power.
Right.
And you know what's really weird, just not to get off the subject, but if you watch The West Wing first, where Martin Sheen actually does play the president, and then you watch The Dead Zone, I tell you, Matt, it is fucking chilling.
Well, that's why I couldn't watch. That's why I couldn't watch The West Wing.
No, The West Wing is such a great show.
And he's played Kennedy too.
Yeah. But
every time he would walk and talk with someone, I was like, oh, he's going to launch the missiles of dawn.
That's fantastic. That's like a great, like play Dark Side of the Moon with Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. You're off to a good start, Larry.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a great little hack. I don't know what you would call that, but people should do that.
Okay, so look, I threw out classic 1953 War of the Worlds as one. I know it's not exactly.
It's a pretty large scoped.
I do have others, but
subject.
I want to have you guys.
Well, I would like to throw out one that is a pretty obscure one, but as a kid, this really affected me. It's a TV movie from 1974 called "Where Have All the People Gone?"
That's on my list.
No, and this was really interesting because
Peter Graves.
Sean, I don't know this
one. It was
one.
Peter Graves was the father, and Kathleen Quinlan was his teenage daughter, and he had a son. and they were like hiking in the mountains, and there was some kind of weird solar flare thing happening that they heard about on the radio, but then the radio went bad and they couldn't get a hold of anybody. And basically what happened was there was some strange kind of solar flare effect where it disintegrated everybody. For some reason, the area
they're like powder, white powder, right?
Now, and you watch the movie now, and it's just absurd. Like they walk around, there's like these little perfect little piles of powder that were people. But as a kid, it really freaked me out because
it's very chilling.
There's like nobody around, and the movie is like Peter Graves, the father and husband. They're trying to reconnect with his wife, the kid's mom, who is like somewhere else. So they had to get to her, and everybody is gone. They're all just powder, but all the animals have gone crazy.
Yeah, there's like
packs of
roving dogs. Yeah, I remember that.
And it's actually chilling. It's pretty grim too. Like not to give away what happens, but it's again, this is your classic kind of like 70s TV movie. So it's very low budget. It's really just a character study of Graves and his kid. But it's again just as a kid, like oh my god, like just wake up one day and like everybody's gone. They're just turned to powder. It's just chilling.
And you can get that made to order on DVD now.
Can you
right?
make?
I think so. Yeah. Like I said, it's not too well known. I mean, there's actually a lot of like 70s TV movies that still have to see the light of day on DVD and Blu-ray. There's so many, but that's just kind of like one of those like golden age suspense 70s TV movies.
I used to watch that movie, and then I would sing. Where have all the people
Sean, I'm
gone?
sorry. What's the name of the movie again?
It's called Where Have All the People Gone?
Where Have All the People Gone? See,
1974.
I'm not familiar with that
It's
one.
good, and Peter Graves is actually really good. Like he's,
I love that
he's
movie.
usually very kind of stoic. You know him as Mission Impossible, but he's really good as like the caring father. And
He's
the guy.
believable, yes.
Yeah, it's really good.
I've heard of it many times. I've heard the title, but I've never seen it. And it always made me think of that Twilight Zone. Where is everybody?
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
The
pilot, right?
So go
Yeah,
ahead.
Earl Holliman, right?
That's the first episode, right?
Right.
Yes.
First one,
yes.
yeah.
Can I throw one out?
Please.
Sure,
Oh,
yeah.
You're our guest.
And this is, I swear to God, this is one of my favorite horror movies. And I just thought of it right now when you were talking about that movie, because I never would have put this together as an apocalypse film, but it is. I think Vanishing on 7th Street is a masterpiece. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant movie.
Vanishing on 7th Street.
Yeah.
I don't know this one.
No,
me
neither do
neither.
I.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, you
Tell
stumped us.
please.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
stumped us.
Give it to us.
The cast is Thandie Newton, John Leguizamo, Hayden Christensen,
Oh.
and then there's a kid in it. I don't know the kid's name.
So it's recent.
It's pretty recent.
2010, I think.
Yeah. But the plot of the movie is this darkness starts growing. It starts as just regular shadows that would be anywhere, and it grows bigger and bigger. And if the darkness envelops you, that's it. You disappear, and just your clothes are left there. That's why I thought of it, because
Oh,
it's sort of like
I don't know this
And
one.
the land is left, right? The city or whatever is left.
everything is left
Except you.
Yeah, but then it also, I think, is draining power too.
Okay.
So the problem is as this thing spreads, not only are there less illuminated places to go, it's also draining power. So your chances of illuminating things are growing smaller and smaller.
Wow.
So the bulk of the movie is about these four people. They're in a dive bar that's being run on a generator, and they're trying to figure out how are we going to deal with this.
Wow.
Interesting.
What are we going to do? It's amazing. It directed by Brad Anderson. I don't know who that is. Apologies. He also directed.
He's not listening.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay. He also directed The Machinist, which is one of my favorite.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Films.
Yeah.
He directed Trans-Siberian, Session 9. Great.
Oh.
Session 9 I love.
So, but anyway, it's a really phenomenal movie, and it plays essentially like a 90-minute Twilight Zone episode.
Cool.
It's very, very Twilight Zone, and it is an apocalyptic movie, which if you watch it, you'll see why. I don't want to give away too much, but
Right. Wow. That sounds good.
it's
That's
a really
good one.
cool movie.
So what's the name of this again?
The Vanishing on 7th Street.
The Vanishing on 7th Street.
Yes.
And does it envelop the world in like an eternal night?
The whole
or-
thing takes place at night.
Oh.
So
okay.
it's like, I haven't watched it in a little while, but it's one of two things. It's either that it moves so quickly in one night that it's like, we're fucked.
Right.
This
right.
thing is moving at too fast a pace. Or they don't know anymore if it's day or night
Okay.
or what the hell is
Right,
going on.
okay.
But I think it's the former. I think it just starts spreading so quickly, and it starts like at a movie theater, which is
Oh
cool.
wow. Okay.
Cool.
It's a really cool movie.
I think I might have whizzed by this thing on Netflix. I might. Oh, that looks interesting.
That's
So,
where
but
I
that's
saw
good,
it.
huh?
I saw it out of my indignation towards people that hate the Star Wars prequels. I watched it. I watched it to support Hayden Christensen, and then ended up loving the movie. And I was like, "Oh, this is actually
Okay.
a really great movie."
Cool.
But check that out. That's a good
That's
one.
a good one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Matt, what about you?
Well, I'm going to go right off the bat to one of my favorites in the genre. And it's a film that I would see.
End of the world movie.
End of the world movie. It was a film that I would watch many times growing up, especially in high school. We'd go to any revival theater that was showing it. And it's 1975's A Boy and His Dog. Yes,
That's
based on the Harlan Ellison novella. And this movie is great. It's a low-budget, modest film starring Don Johnson.
Don Johnson. This is before his whole Miami
Before
Vice.
his fame.
Yeah.
As the dog, right? Is he playing the dog?
No, he's the boy.
He's the boy. He's the boy. And Suzanne Benton as Quilla June, who is the lovely girl in the movie. And the basic premise. Yeah, she is.
girl,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's.
Tell the premise.
She's so nice. So it's after a nuclear war, and I guess during the war they created these animals that were intelligent,
Right.
and also had the power of telepathy.
Yeah.
And so one of these dogs survived and hooked up with this boy, Don Johnson, or as he's known in the film, Vic. And the dog is the brains of the outfit.
Right.
And it's a
Don
great
Johnson's just kind of like a tool.
and it's a great
yeah,
voice. The dog has a great voice.
Don Johnson is this guy who basically lives to just get laid. And in this horrible hellscape of post-apocalypse
it's
America,
terrible.
he gets this dog to find women to have sex with, rape. And it's not a family film. It's
rated R.
But it's it's a dark, gritty version of the apocalypse, the post-apocalyptic America. And he and this dog have this weird friendship. It's almost like the dog is like a surrogate father.
Yes.
Who's teaching him and teaches him all this information about history that a guy like this would never know.
Right,
And
right.
kind of fights against being taught this. So
Right.
he has to recite all the presidents and he has to recite, the history of how World War III went.
Yeah.
And so he has this very close relationship with this dog who finds him girls, and Vic finds the dog food and takes care of him. And they have this life that they've kind of worked out.
It seems desolate.
It's desolate, but there's always this promise, like they're going to go over the hill and they're going to find this Shangri-La of new territory where things are going to be better. There's going to be all kinds of women and food but it never really happens. They go to a movie theater, and the movie theater is really great in this film because it's this outdoor movie theater where they're playing these really horribly grainy, scratched up films of like softcore porn movies.
Like old stag films?
Yeah, old kind of stag movies.
Right.
And they're watching this, and Blood gets a scent of this girl, and they go follow the scent, and they find this girl. And this girl, now most of the girls who are in this post-apocalyptic wasteland are kind of, rough.
Yeah, they're skanky.
Yeah, they're a little, it's been a rough life, especially if you're a woman.
It's the apocalypse.
It's the apocalypse, right? And then here you go. Here's this girl who's just gorgeous, like drop dead beautiful, and she's taking off her clothes and and combing her hair, and he's watching. He's just blown away, and he's gonna rape her, and she kind of seduces him. And in the midst of this rival gang attacks them. And anyway, to make a long story short, what happens is that there now becomes this triangle between Blood, the girl Quilla June, and the boy Vic. And she wants to take him down below where she lives, which is this underground society.
Yes.
Subterranean.
Society that kind of embraces traditional family values of the Midwest, and there's band concerts and
It's all like twisted and weird.
yeah,
and
and like when you go down there, everybody has this powdered face.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Almost
to make
like
it
a clown now.
Yes, like a clown.
Jason
like
Robards.
a clown, Larry.
Yeah, yes, but it's kind of to make everything happy.
Right.
and everything seems great.
Oh,
But
that
it's
sounds
not.
Right.
It is
Right.
not.
It's not. It's an authoritarian regime where they have these robots that keep everybody in line, and they're these big, giant, hulking guys that if you do anything, they'll come after you and they'll just snap your neck. So he gets lured down there. And I don't want to give any more away because it's a really great
It's a really
story.
twisted, dark movie. I want to point out too that this movie was directed by a guy named L.Q. Jones. He also produced it. And L.Q. Jones is a character actor that you've seen like in a million TV shows, and he's got a mustache, kind of a weathered kind of Western look.
Okay.
And he was an actor, but he partnered with another filmmaker, producer, which was actor Alvey Moore. Yeah,
And Alvey Moore is known for
Mr. Kimball in Green Acres. Like,
No.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Douglas.
Wow.
Like,
I did not know that.
L.Q. Jones and Alvey Moore together made several genre films, and Boy and His Dog was one of them, which L.Q. Jones directed. But they also made a great horror film called The Brotherhood of Satan with STROTHE Martin. Yeah. It's a creepy, satanic
Love it.
Stuff going on in a small town. They also produced a movie called The Witchmaker, which Alvey Moore is in as like the hero professor in the movie. So it's just cool because like these guys you would not expect, like these two kind of character actors, acting in all these shows and movies at the time, but they also kind of got together and made a few really cool little memorable movies.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's just kind of really cool. Just really cool stuff.
Well, I do want to add, Matt, I don't want to give anything away, but that ending is just terrific.
It's terrific.
Totally
Of what
surprised.
twisted.
It totally surprised me.
It is surprising. Harlan Ellison is one of these writers who is usually not very satisfied when anyone does a film version of his work. And this is one that he mostly liked. The one part he didn't like is the very, very end, which is that he feels the end is a little flippant.
It's like the last line.
The last line is a little
Interesting.
I didn't know.
flippant
No.
compared to his original novella,
Okay, then
which is a little more downbeat.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to
In
check that out.
tone.
I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
check that
okay.
out. I love the ending. Don't
I
want to
love
give
it
it
too.
away. It is a really neat apocalyptic
And
film.
I remember, again, as a teenager watching this thing and being blown away at just how strange, like
Very
the
unique.
type of movie that you wouldn't normally see.
I have
Not at all.
I have the audio book of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Oh, really?
And that story is in it. But I go to sleep sometimes to audiobooks, and I've gone to sleep to that book a couple of times. And then that story, I remember one night came on. So I don't know the whole story, but I would hear parts of it. And it's a weird story to drift in and out of.
Yes, it is.
Really.
Because Harlan Ellison reads it.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Reading
Really?
it with that,
Yeah.
he reads with a real
Bitterness.
vigor. Yeah,
There's a little bitterness.
Yeah.
He kind of chews the scenery. I do like the way he reads it, though.
Yeah, and then the dog, they affect the dog's voice. When he's doing the dog's voice, they put an effect on it so you know this is the dog talking.
okay.
Oh, okay.
And he does read it very close in style to the dog in the movie, who, by the way,
Voiced by Tim McIntyre.
So yeah, I'd wake up at like, it'd be like 4:15. I'd like sort of wake up and hear like the dog be like, "That bitch is no good for us." And then like
Hey, is this?
what the
are these my own thoughts, or
yeah.
I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream? That's another good End of the World, which of course has a tie to the Terminator series.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
Because
right,
that's the
right.
story that I guess that there's a couple stories that kind of relate to.
Right.
Demon with the glass hand is the one, isn't it?
Yeah,
Or
it's,
remember.
it's one of
Ellison,
the. It's one of the
and
ones.
also Soldier.
And Soldier
Right.
too, yes.
in
and Soldier.
So
Limits.
he had 3 stories.
Yes.
Yes.
That he said together these were the Terminator.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was only Demon with the glass hand.
No,
So it's
there were
all
elements of
3.
the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think eventually, right in the original Terminator film, they eventually gave him a credit, right? Like inspired
Yes.
by or
The
something.
works
Yeah,
of
the
Harlan
work-
Ellison.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
they gave him
that's
the-
fascinating.
Give him
Yeah,
a credit.
yeah.
They gave him a credit and some money, right?
And some
I
ham.
think so. Yeah. yeah.
Ham? Well, who doesn't love
I
ham?
thought there was some food involved.
I'll take some
Wow,
ham.
maybe.
He's Jewish, though.
Then it couldn't have been ham.
Couldn't be a ham.
So that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Well,
If you
James-
haven't seen it, check it out.
James, I know you've got one.
You have
You
your little
know,
crinkled piece of paper. What do you got?
And if you say quintet,
I'm waiting for you to talk about that. I expect you to
Well,
talk
then
about
let's
that.
talk about
yes.
that.
Well, wait, what?
Quintet.
Quintet. I want to hear you what you say about that.
Is the only, I think, the only science fiction post-apocalyptic movie directed by Robert Altman.
That's right, 1979.
1979 with Paul Newman
Right.
of all people, and it is the worst Robert Altman film he ever
I'm
made.
glad you admit that.
Thank
No,
you.
I saw this movie in a theater. I loved Altman. I don't know that my expectations were necessarily high, but even if you go in with no expectations, it's like, what the fuck is this?
But get the gist of this.
What is
Yeah.
Quintet about that I should not see?
Well, it's post-apocalyptic. There's a new ice age. For some reason, that's not really explained, but Paul Newman plays a seal hunter he's with a woman who's pregnant, and they're foraging in this winter wasteland, and they find a community, and almost right away, the woman he's with gets killed by a terrorist bomb, which is a legitimate. It's the only thing you really remember about the movie because it's a legitimate surprise. Somebody lobs a grenade into this room. And then
trying to destroy the movie that you're watching to put you out of your misery.
If only, right? And then the whole hour after that is spent when he's in some basement playing a game called Quintet with these actors.
It's like five-sided cards or something, or five-edged. It's like
there's no sense. There's no logic.
It's
to
like
it.
a card-playing version of Russian roulette or something, isn't
Right,
it?
but
Some
even if
kind
you
of-
try to follow it in good faith, you cannot.
Imagine
because
Old Maid, the movie.
Oh,
in the snow.
In the snow.
and it's all about like survival because the losers get killed one by one.
Yeah,
but there's
it's kind of like
there's
this
no
bleak
explanation
kind of-
for it.
Yeah, and it's like
terrible.
literally almost a full 2 hours.
Yeah.
and it's
And you
it's-
regret every minute of it.
You do.
it really
you
is.
do. Apparently, Altman sort of improvised as he went along. He didn't really have a story or a script. He didn't.
Really?
He didn't.
Jeez.
You know, this
No
is,
wonder.
Although the studio apparently did tamper with it, but I don't know if it would have made a difference if Altman had final cut.
Right.
It was it was just a really strange, awful movie.
Little known fact, though, Paul Newman did make a salad dressing based on the film.
which was way more exciting than
And it was
the
his
movie.
worst dressing. It's the worst of all the dressings.
I
The
mean,
worst of all of his dressings.
And his
yes.
dressings are really great.
I know.
So this must have been a
You
really
can't
bad.
That vehicle can't win.
What, did it-
you know, sometimes you can find a horrible movie and try to get some entertainment value out of it.
no,
Like,
nothing at all.
Also, the time that came out, remember, this is 79, so like it was Star Wars fever, and you know, it was escapist. Like this thing plotted out into the theaters. Like, what the fuck is this thing?
Also, too, a bad movie that you're going to enjoy is not going to be a bad Robert Altman movie.
Right.
That's
true,
just
that's
going to be a
true.
really fucking boring.
Yeah.
movie.
Right. It's
Yeah.
not like so bad it's good. Kind of thing. That's true.
Yeah.
I can't imagine any entertainment value coming from Quintet. But for those who are curious, just to see a train wreck, rent Quintet.
Yeah.
Give him the fuck out of that thing.
Wow.
Now, I asked this because it's sitting in the center of the table. I mean, I'm assuming we're going to talk about it at
yes.
some point, if not now.
I'm right here.
What is the group's opinion on the adaptations of the various adaptations of I Am Legend?
Oh, good. That's
Well,
good.
that's
Yeah.
a good question.
Because
I thought you were talking about this.
Well, let's get to that.
Okay,
next.
we'll get to that.
I was talking
No,
to-
okay. No,
Yeah.
you
So-
talk about this. Go ahead.
The first film being
Last Man on Earth is the first one, Vincent
Right,
Price.
Vincent
So there are, as far as I know, there are 4 adaptations. There's Last Man on Earth, there's The Omega Man, there's I Am Legend with Will Smith. Then there's another movie called I Am Omega that was like a sort of made for sci-fi.
Oh, that
didn't
was
see
that?
that one.
Okay, that
It
was
was
like
shit.
that was it was, but it was based loosely on that too.
Yeah, it might even be an asylum movie. I don't know.
It could be, yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
So let's throw that one out the window.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about 3.
And just talk about the 3 that everybody
Yeah,
knows.
I like the fact that they're all different too in tone and style.
I do, and I think this is going to be the controversial opinion. I think they get consecutively better. I really
Okay.
love
Really?
I Am
All right.
Legend.
Well, that's
Okay,
our
okay,
show.
Wait. Wait, did you say better?
Yes.
Okay, clown. Just leave this room now.
So you guys think the Vincent Price one obviously is the best one?
Well,
I do.
Well, the
I do.
Omega Man has a lot going for it.
I love Omega Man.
No, no.
I love all 3 of
The
them.
Omega Man is almost a different movie entirely.
It's more of an
it's a different
action
story
70s,
entirely.
yeah.
It shouldn't even be I Am Legend.
Well, but it is.
Sort of is, though.
it's tailored to be a
I mean, none
Heston.
of them, if you know the book, none of them. In fact, I believe if you know the book, the Will Smith one is pretty damn close, except for the direction it goes at the end.
and the horrible CGI monsters.
That the CGI monsters suck. I will admit that they don't look
awful.
good. But I think as far as the suspense and adaptation and pacing and all that sort of thing, I think they did a good job with it. It's just unfortunate that these monsters look so.
They're so bad.
I
They
don't
look
blame
bad.
Will Smith. I think
yeah,
he does a
I mean,
good job.
he tries, yeah.
He tries. I just think that it's the direction of it. Again, the fact that they always second guess the source material. Why not just try to emulate the mood of the book? And I would say that the first one does the best job of that.
It's more a horror film.
It's more of a horror film, and you get that idea of. And also the fact that it's in black and white
Right.
adds a bleakness to it.
Sure.
That adds to this is the world dying
Now,
kind of quality
Pretty
to
low
it.
budget too.
Yeah, now
Yes, it's
for our
Italian.
for our listeners who haven't seen any of these films, of course, they're apocalyptic. Well, they're similar in the theme that there is some kind of disease.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
And we'll start with Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price. This was made in 1964. Was this shot in Spain?
It was
Italy.
It was
Italy.
Italian. It was Italian American. I think co-production. I think.
And so there is a disease or something that seems to be spreading throughout humanity. Okay, and you're not really sure how you get it. Vincent Price is one of many doctors who are trying to
come up with the cure.
Yeah, come up with the cure.
Right.
And that's the basic theme for the other ones, too.
And they really kind of are, the people who get the disease really are kind of becoming vampires.
They die
right?
and they come back as
it's
vampires.
Zombie/vampires,
Yeah.
right?
And
they have the whole mood of that first film, especially, has a lot mirroring Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Right,
and so it's not like if they go outside, they're going to shrivel up into powder. No, it's like the sunlight is just too darn bright.
They're super sensitive to
They're
it.
so you just can't go outside.
Right.
And so that's why they come out at night.
Yes.
But they're
Like vampires.
Yeah,
really.
But they also do respond to a lot of the things that vampires are afraid of, like mirrors and
garlic.
That's true,
garlic,
yeah,
garlic.
yeah.
and in the original book, they explain a little bit why that is, and even though this thing is a virus, that I think, if I'm correct here, I think that in the book he finds that crosses don't affect Jewish vampires. They really get into the pathology of the virus.
Right. So
Right.
but what Vincent Price decides to do is, and it kind of goes through how the place is populated, people start getting the disease, people start getting sick, people start dying. There's the whole progression, because he gives himself isn't there an injection or something?
Like the vaccine, I think.
And he seems to be immune to this.
Right.
But he takes it upon himself to, well, look, humanity as I know it is gone, but they're like living dead kind of a thing.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and try to take these people out of their misery.
Right.
But what he doesn't know is that there are a group of people who the disease affects slower.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, yes, there are the vampires, but there are also this entire community of these people who can still think and
Yeah.
behave as human beings.
Right.
And they're just being affected slower. And he's killing them as well.
He goes during the day to try to find these people, and with a stake and a hammer, and he's able to kill
And
one
he
at a time.
becomes known in the community, like he's this like hunter out there, like that's what the I Am
which
Legend
is
idea.
not which is not what he wanted to be. He wanted to be this person who's actually doing good, taking people out of their misery from this certain horrible death.
How does I don't remember. How does the Price one end? What's the very ending?
I don't know if I want to give away the ending.
They're all kind of similar in the sense
it's the
that
same- yeah, yeah.
there's like Christ imagery in the sense that he is the thing that is going to enable them to live on,
or has
Right.
the ability to.
Okay, so then that's also the way the Will Smith one ends. But the book, if I remember correctly, it's the two things that I remembered from the book that never seem to really appear in any of the films. If I'm, I don't.
Is the I Am Legend part?
Well, two things. Number one, the sexual themes in the book. The vampire women are taunting him.
Yes.
Sexually.
Yeah, they're lifting up their blouses and they're showing their tits.
64, I don't know.
Well, they could have done it.
Well, they could have done it now.
They could have done it.
Yeah.
But my point is that was such an intriguing part to me.
Right.
That you're literally the only man alive.
Right.
And the only thing you can conceivably have sex with are these vampires, and they're trying to lure you out with their vaginas. Like I was like, that seems maddening to me. I don't know what you would do. And I also don't. And if I remember,
bring them in, give them some, give them some blood.
Wine and
I would be
dine 'em?
dead. I would be dead. I'd be like, I'm gonna go
I'll
fuck
tell you
one of
what.
these vampires.
We'll have sex. You get a pint.
And then the other part is the end of the book. If I remember correctly, it's the idea that, and here's a spoiler because it's the end of the book. It's the idea that who's the monster? They're almost in fear of him.
Right. That's why it's I Am Legend. He is the legend. He is the boogeyman.
Exactly.
Right.
And you never
cool.
really you certainly don't get that in the Will Smith version.
Well, no, in the Will Smith one, it's I am the legend that will restore.
Save you. Yes.
And that's sort of the way the Price one ends too, right? sort of.
It's a little more ambiguous.
But
in the
also
Christ one.
in the Heston one, the Christ imagery is way more, way over the top,
but
heavy-handed.
but it's still great.
Yeah, no,
Charlton Heston.
the
Did he
Heston
get
one
shot
is-
with arrows at the end or something?
Yeah, he's like in a cross position.
Hey, hey,
and it's
hey.
like-
I enjoy it, but it's a silly movie.
Do you think it's? I don't
but
think
it's
it's
fun, though.
silly.
It's
I
more
did
like-
It's not-
what
it's
you
not
looked
I Am
at-
Legend.
You looked at it and you were like laughing, ha ha ha. This
Yeah,
is a,
just like that, yeah.
You were like, you are so.
No, I was laughing at it because all of a sudden now everyone's got a cloak.
Yeah,
and they've
yeah,
got
the
these
zombies
nice
have these mod
tailored
kind of
cloaks.
Matt,
Yeah, that
it's,
part is
okay.
dumb.
No. It's
stupid.
it's not stupid. It makes sense because it goes further than Last Man on Earth.
It's more like they're organized, like this
They're
kind of
organized,
Manson cult.
and they,
you
but
know?
they feel but they feel that they have a calling. Our calling is to cleanse the earth. We're going to clean the earth. We've been left
Yeah, we don't
alive.
like mechanical things.
It's,
Right.
Anthony Zerbe is the head guy. He's like, Neville, come out, Neville.
Yeah,
Well, that's
you didn't like
interesting.
that?
And then also-
I thought
I
that was
do.
cool and it was creepy.
And also, what's cool about the cloaks? That I just said they were dumb. Now I'm starting to think they're cool. Is that if you're
Thank
dealing
you.
with vampire-esque organisms that are afraid of the sunlight, one of the ways they adapt is they make these cloaks.
That's true. That's
So
true.
they can actually
the
be
other thing is
outside.
you're
It's
forgetting.
that and the religious, like they're this Manson
yeah.
cult
That was-
part.
that's-
That's the part that I had a bigger problem
See,
with.
But
than the
also, it
cloaks.
was the 70s. It's very mod. You have Rosalind Cash kind of gets it on with Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
It's kind of
yes,
very,
interracial kiss, my friend.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
a big
It's-
deal.
more
sir.
than kissing.
But it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much.
Did you watch the whole film?
It's
Yeah.
very much a Heston show, though. You know, he's like action hero. in
Well,
the
he
movie.
was a big star.
Yeah,
he was
totally.
huge.
I do like the movie,
Yeah,
but
it's fun.
It's
It's fun.
silly.
It's a little
silly.
cheesy, but I love it
It's
because-
cheesy and
yeah.
silly and dated.
You know,
and-
it's so funny you
Yeah.
guys say that because I bet back in the 70s you guys would say, "Oh, this is
Nope.
the coolest thing."
No, I did
I
not.
love the music too. Great music.
And that is, and I again will criticize my favorite of the adaptations. I don't like in the Will Smith one that there's no human essence to these things anymore.
yeah, they just like
Yes.
they roar like lions.
It was a mistake making them CGI. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're just ravenous like creatures.
Yeah.
And that really loses something because, again, in the book, the taunting of Neville is so interesting.
I get that, but I just wanted to go back. I know you guys think it was silly. Growing up in private schools, I saw the religious thing that these
Sure.
people were
There's no way
fanatical.
you-
This
yeah.
fanatical
Yeah.
religious organization feeling like the world has died. Our job is to clear this place of all the dead bodies, and
Right,
anyone
right.
who's dealing with any kind of technological thing, we are going to destroy them because that's not what the world is supposed to be.
Right.
And so I didn't find that silly at all. I bought that, Matt. I bought that because no, it's that whole religious thing, sir.
Well,
No,
I'm telling you, I still enjoy the movie.
Yeah,
but
it's a little over the top.
It's a little over
like
the
when he
top,
crashes the helicopter, he's climbing out. Vaccine.
I don't know.
Charlton has
The first one scared the living shit out of me.
That's the thing. Omega Man is not really scary. It's
Right.
It's an action movie.
exciting and action, but
I would
but-
agree. I would
yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Last Man on Earth.
Is creepy.
His
yeah.
name, Neville's name in that movie is Morgan. And I remember watching that on Creature Features,
Yep.
our local, horror movie show.
Sure.
And watching that with my brother. And my brother would constantly fuck with me growing up, and he would turn out all the lights. What he'd do is he'd go to the circuit breaker and he'd turn off the circuit breaker so I couldn't, if I wanted to, turn on the light.
Sure.
Yeah.
And he would hide in the dark. After we saw that movie, he would hide in the dark and go, Morgan. And because I'm still living it. I'm still in that movie, and now he's recreating it. He's creating my own hell on earth.
Now, you told that story before. My older brother called me and he said, "You know what? I want to meet Matt's older brother." Because
We'll get them together.
he goes, "Boy, Larry, that was a great idea. I should have done that on you." I'm like,
It
"No,
is.
no."
And I do respect his evil genius.
Now, I'm going to revisit The Last Man on Earth
Can I
after this discussion.
You should. But can
Yeah,
I
that's
also
fun.
throw out, since we're talking about a sort of apocalypse thing and vampires, Snakeland? Anyone?
I never saw Steak.
I haven't seen
Snakeland's great.
I do not know this one.
Snakeland is...
Is it truly an end of the world movie?
It is an end-of-the-world movie, and it is kind of along the lines of Walking Dead type scenario.
What's the date on that, Snakeland?
I don't have
2010. I
it.
believe.
2010.
That's not that
it's
old.
a fairly recent movie.
I don't know this one, Matt.
Danielle Harris is in it. She's probably one of the bigger names in it.
From Halloween?
But yeah. And she has kind of a minor part, but the story is instead of zombies, now it's this scourge of vampires. And the vampires in this movie are kind of more like the vampires in the most recent version of I Am Legend. They're more animalistic.
Right.
But they're really savage, and they'll just rip you to pieces. And they're like wolves. They're horrifying. And so this kid is with his family, and these vampires attack his family. They eat a baby in the very first 10 minutes of the movie.
What year is this?
Wow.
Yeah.
What year?
2010.
2010. And
Baby eating.
they're wiping the vampires wipe out his entire family. Just then, this badass vampire hunter guy shows up and goes, "You want to live? Come with me." And so now they're paired up, and he's teaching this kid how to survive in this vampire apocalypse. And they go to a lot of different towns that are kind of refuges from the vampire menace. But every time they think they're, ahead of them, somehow they get in. And there's more elements to it, but I don't want to give too much away of this film because it really is a lot of fun, and it was one of the better things that I'd seen recently done with vampires that I thought was kind of different.
Well, that's how I felt about The Strain. I thought The Strain was a great is a great TV show. I'm behind on it. But again, it's sort of an origin apocalypse story, but it's about the outbreak of these vampires and the world ending. And
I didn't give that enough of a chance because I've been told. I watched the first couple episodes and I thought it was a little hokey, but I've heard that it gets great.
It does.
Yeah, I have not seen this one
It's
yet.
pulpy. I mean, it's really,
Right.
which is what I liked. It's Guillermo del Toro, and it's very, it's pulpy. It's very, it's very comic booky.
Is it
But
still
that's
running?
pretty cool.
Is it
Oh, yeah.
continuing?
I think it's coming
think
back.
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's for another season.
Yeah.
I think they're about to go into season 4.
No, it's it's
something.
very popular.
My big problem was that there was a billboard and there was a worm coming out of an eyeball. It was like, it's not for me. Anything with
Really?
an eyeball.
Really?
it's like,
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a little
Jeez.
sensitive to the eyeball thing. Yeah.
Really? Is that what it is?
I remember the ad.
Wow.
Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything with an eyeball, you're out?
I am out. Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
So the
Zombie.
That is
So the
completely...
crawling eye, you can't watch.
That is
Beast with a
giant
million
alien eye.
Beast with a million eyes.
that is so irrational.
Zombie 2, that Italian movie?
Yeah.
There's an eyeball scene.
Yeah, Fulci.
Not
Yeah.
for me. Not
Brutal
for me.
eyeball
Cannot-
scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cannot.
It's
Yeah.
Sharp
One of the
Interesting.
stick.
Cannot go
brutal.
there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's maybe one of the best eyeball scenes ever.
I
in
learned
cinema.
I
It made
learned
me love the movie. I liked the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That part made me love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That and the shark.
Yes.
I learned
Yes.
something new about you. I did not know about the eyeball
I saw that
thing.
billboard and I'm like, it's not for me. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a giallo from the 70s called Eyeball where it's the killer's like gouging out people's eyeballs. You probably wouldn't
Not
like
for
that
me.
either.
What's
Not
the-
for me.
Okay.
So the Buñuel film?
Oh, yeah.
Forget it.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Un Chien Andalou? No.
Yeah, where
yeah,
they
where they
actually
cut the eye.
They-
use a straight razor to cut an
They
eyeball.
forced me to watch it in film school, and
It's a film school
I cannot,
staple.
I cannot
Yeah,
unwatch it. Let's
wow.
put it right.
Wow, that's the end of the world for James.
Wow, now I
Yeah, it's apocalyptic.
now I know how to fuck with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the worst part in Fire in the Sky too. When the aliens put the needle into
Oh yeah,
whatever that guy's
The
name
guy
is.
abducted. Yeah, that was the only good part of that movie. Really,
That movie sucks.
Yeah, really-
Except for those. There's like
Yeah.
7 minutes on that alien
yes.
ship
Always
that
the-
are
it's
amazing.
always the alien stuff.
I wanted something like that movie just goes nowhere. Like I wanted some kind of meaningful ending to that movie, but the only good parts were like when those flashbacks when he's being abducted.
Yeah.
It's like that thing where they go like based on a true story, and you go, well, maybe it shouldn't have been.
yeah.
What if we embellish this a little bit?
Because the actual story is interesting to me, like whether it really happened or not, it's compelling. But God, that movie was
All right.
Well,
All right,
this is
back
great
to
that
the
we talked
world.
about the eyeballs and stuff. But I want to get to
go.
move on about apocalyptic
Who's
stuff.
next?
I think.
Go.
Well, I just wanted to bring up one of the most famous apocalyptic films that was seen by millions of people, and just to give people a little history lesson for
no.
come on, just bear with me. Back in 1980, there was a big political campaign between two candidates. You had Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. One of the big pushes with Ronald Reagan was Russia has more tanks than us. Russia has more bombs than us. Russia has, and I remember the commercials as a kid back in 1980, seeing all the advertisements about how much Russia had more than the United States and how many nuclear bombs they had, and it was a scary thing.
Sure.
Ronald Reagan gets put into office. There was all this conversation about how there's this tension. Ronald Reagan called Soviet Union the evil empire. They have a new head of the Soviet Union, and no one knows how these two guys are going to act. There was a lot of conversation about nuclear war.
It was Brezhnev at the time, right?
Yeah, and then he died, and then that's when they got Gorbachev.
Okay.
But so at that time, there was a lot of discussion about nuclear war. And the scientists started saying, well, how can we survive a nuclear war? What can we do? There was a film that was made for television called The Day After. It came out on television in 1983. Now, the amazing thing about this film, I remember I watched this film on television, and there was such a huge buildup for it because it was in the news. People had wondered
it was
about,
like a big deal about
okay,
it.
if we were to strike them first, how can we survive, whatnot. The film was directed by Nicholas Meyer, who was, he had done Star Trek,
Wrath of Khan.
And
Fantastic.
the year before.
And Invasion of the Bee Girls.
He wasn't the first director. He wasn't the first director to be assigned to this, but he was the director when he saw the first script. He said, ooh, this is great. But at this time, folks, ladies and gentlemen, in 1983, the censors were very sensitive about what went on television.
Sure.
Was it like several parts? Was it a miniseries?
No. He wanted originally that was the original idea, and he said no. It has to be effective. There was a battle with him between the network. There's a battle with the censors. There were some things. There was a little give and take about stuff that he did not
Some
put in the film.
concerns about Steve Gutenberg.
Well,
That's right.
look,
And shown without commercials, if I remember correctly.
Exactly.
What?
It was a
Completely?
big deal, and I remember
I
not
remember
only
that.
was I so obsessed about this, I watched they had Nightline, where they actually had Ted Koppel interviewing Nicholas Meyer and a bunch of other experts. But the film, it's weird. There is a nuclear war. Okay, or a limited nuclear war, and you do see there is the mushroom cloud, there is destruction. The biggest criticism that people had about it was, you had survivors. And then it goes on to show, the story follows a group of people. It's not like The Love Boat.
Kansas City, right?
Yeah, Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
And it follows a group of various people that don't necessarily know each other.
Again,
okay?
Jason Robards.
Got
Jason-
some crazy little women, and they're all dead.
Jason Robards is fantastic,
Joe Beth
but
Williams.
basically it follows these people as everything's fine. Everyone has their jobs. They're doing,
Right.
and then there's this nuclear bomb that goes off. And then it follows the people scientifically. What happens? Is it you start to get tired, you lose your taste, the hair starts falling,
coming out,
and there was a lot of things, and it was long and drawn out, And it was one of those films that it blows me away that now something like this, not even a Super Bowl can, well, maybe a Super Bowl can, but it was seen by over 100 million people in the United States at that time. It was such a contemporary thing, and people forget about it.
It was. I mean, look, that movie got so much like hoopla and attention. But I tell you, there was another movie, a theatrical movie that came out the same year.
Yep.
That for me was much more effective.
I
and
agree.
My next
much
one.
more hard hitting, and that was a film called Testament.
Yes, Testament.
And it
Now,
was
have you seen Testament?
I haven't seen Testament. I thought both of you were going to say Threads, which was
That's another
was
one.
an English movie.
Yes.
That's the same thing. That is
kind of a news.
unbelievably disturbing.
Yes, that was disturbing.
Nuclear. But go ahead.
But no,
Sean,
look,
I just
but
want to say the day-
Testament was same year, 1983.
Yeah, the day
It was
after I think was like more famous.
Yes,
because
right.
Testament was
But
theatrical.
But Testament just really took place pretty much all with Jane Alexander and her immediate family in a suburban
Neighborhood, yeah.
neighborhood, and
Which
it-
was originally produced for PBS.
Yeah.
For American Playhouse.
Oh, right.
Really?
And I think Lynn Littman directed it. And the thing about the movie was, like, unlike The Day After, which you saw a mushroom cloud and
Yeah.
you saw destruction, there was none of that in
No.
Testament. It focused solely on these people basically waiting to die because
Yeah.
they
You see a
knew that-
flash, and that's
Flash,
it.
flash, but
There's no special
they knew that
effects.
the radiation was
No.
coming, and the characters in the movie would start dying off, and it's just like it's just about people dying.
Well, and
But
it's also the difference between The Day After and Testament is that Day After is a much bigger story.
Much
It is.
bigger, yeah.
Whereas
Bigger cast of
Testament is a
characters.
very small personal story. It's really about a neighborhood.
Yeah, and
Right.
And the
Yeah.
thing I
Smaller
would agree with Sean. I actually like Testament better
Yeah,
because
it's more effective.
I think
I
it's
mean, I think
brilliant.
People
Super powerful.
people should actually see this because there is no destruction. There's no heroes.
No, it's
there's
just
no
just people dealing
no
with-
special effect.
Yeah.
and it's like it is captivating. And if there's listeners out there, if you're a parent. It's particularly
it's heartbreaking.
powerful.
It's
heartbreaking.
I mean, just imagine.
Jane Alexander is amazing.
She was nominated for an Academy Award
she's
for
incredible.
Testament.
William Devane's in it.
He was
Lucas
fantastic.
Haas.
and a
Yes.
little-known Kevin Costner at the time,
Yes.
and Rebecca De Mornay.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's really good. I mean, look, it's a sobering film, and it's like if you want to see just an example of like that kind of end of the world mentality, where like this is it. You know,
Well,
there's-
here's the funny-
you're kind of helpless.
Well,
That's how. Yeah, that's sorry. That's how Threads is too. It's just
Right,
a group
right.
of people. There's a really horrific scene. There's a pregnant woman, which that's just like this ticking clock of doom through the whole movie. That this lady's pregnant through all this, and then she has the
Right.
baby, and then she has to bite the umbilical cord
Oh,
in half.
See that's
lot of vitamins, though.
There's graphic stuff in Testament. There's nothing that's graphic. And getting back to the weird thing that Sean brought up is it's not necessarily that people are aware that they are going to die, because this seems to have happened so far away. But what slowly starts to
Right.
happen is, Mommy,
the
the milk,
radiation.
Mommy, the milk tastes funny. What's this dust doing
Right,
here?
right.
And it's like,
Yeah.
Mommy, I'm kind of tired. There's this really
it's just
powerful, touching scene where the
you better not
kids-
cry again.
No, I know what scene you're talking about.
It's
yeah.
where she has these three beautiful kids. There's a daughter that's about 12 or 13, a son that's about 9, and a younger little boy who's about 6. And
Lucas
he's in
Haas.
this little, and he's in this
Yeah.
little play. The action has already happened. People in the town know something's happened, but maybe it's important to try to keep our kids' lives as normal as possible.
Right.
Let's continue to deliver the paper. Let's continue to go to school,
To work on the play.
to work on the play.
right.
And the kids do this play, and it's the Pied Piper of Hamlin. Oh,
Yeah,
and it's
no.
just so incredibly powerful because the kids are performing, and some kids aren't there because they're sick. And the kids go through
Right.
Whatever happened to the show must go on.
and they go, they do the show, and you can see the parents on their faces,
Yeah.
as they're reacting, thinking that this may never happen again.
Yeah,
But
no,
slowly but surely, as the daughter, the oldest daughter, who's just about to become a teenager, also
That's my favorite scene.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
most powerful scene for me, is that when she's having that conversation
With her mother.
with her mom about how, like, I'm never going to know what it's like to have sex. I'm never going to know what it's like to have a family.
What was it like with Dad?
Yeah.
And it was like,
Right, yeah.
this was not a moment where she's going to try to brush her daughter off and go, well, it's like, this was a moment where it's like woman to woman.
Yeah.
And then what's so incredibly sad is after that moment, there's this pause, and the next thing you see is Jane Alexander is sewing up a sheet.
It is cut
and
right
it's
to
Yeah, they're
that's
about to bury her.
her
It's like,
daughter.
yeah.
And what's weird is, I don't know if you remember this, but it's a really, really, because I picked this up. She's sewing, and it's almost like in her mind she's having a conversation with her daughter.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden she starts to go. She goes, "Shh, hush, hush." It's like she's talking to her
Yeah,
daughter,
it's-
who's
ugh,
lying there still.
Yeah.
And it's so incredibly
It's very
powerful.
powerful.
That, the whole
it's like-
movie is really
what Testament
scene
did
after
was-
scene like that.
In at that time, we were all very, very sensitive and aware of the very real possibility of nuclear war.
Yeah.
And
I'm
what
glad that's over.
But what Testament did was it made it made it intimate. It diluted it down to
the very core of what it's about.
right. How would it affect us in our families?
Right,
That's what
right,
it did.
right,
No
right.
other movie did that.
I will
take
say
all the special effects, take everything else. Yeah.
I will say this, that Ronald Reagan wrote in his diary that he did see the movie the day after. I don't know if he saw Testament, but he actually said that the film actually made him very depressed. And as we know, 3 years later, we did have a treaty between Russia.
Right.
And So it's
those movies, both those movies are kind of they're a product of their time in a way.
You could
know,
say like in the 50s we did all this exploitation with the atomic bomb and stuff
Right,
like that.
duck
But
and cover
at that time we had this thing in our mentality. We knew that we had dropped bombs in Japan,
Right.
and that it was a limited nuclear bomb. I mean,
Right.
within a certain area, and we kind of still had that mentality in the 80s that it'd still be like that. No,
now it
these
was
bombs
like
are much more
global
powerful.
destruction. Yeah.
Absolutely. Which
Yeah,
to go to
chilling.
war games, the way to win the game is not to
The
play.
only way to win is
Right.
not to play.
Right,
Yes.
right.
You know,
Okay,
in '83 also there was something on the lighter side. I grew up in New York at the time, and the New York Post is a sort of this tabloid rag.
Yeah.
But around '83, they came out with this parody called "Not the New York Post," and it was as if it was post-apocalyptic. And the headline was "Kaboom! It's World War III. Michael Jackson and 80 million others dead. And it's like the story, the leading story, it's like they had to include Michael Jackson to make it interesting.
That's great.
That's great.
Beloved gloved one perishes along with 80 million others. You know?
That's really funny.
Now, you guys were talking about Japan. And now, and this isn't necessarily end of the world, but it was the end of the world to these people, which were the Japanese. And there is a great animated film that is based on a very popular manga series by Kiji Nakazawa, and it's called Barefoot Gen. And it is a series of manga that chronicles the adventures of a family, the life of this family before the bomb and then after. And if you look at the original comic, it's brutal. They pull no punches. They did an animated version in 1983 that's also very powerful. But when they show the destruction of the bomb, I mean, they show people with their skin melting off them and people trapped under buildings, and then the hospitals where everyone has been burned and being treated. And I mean, it's horrifying, and it really gets into the mindset of the wartime Japanese, the effects of the bomb, dealing with it afterward, and how people can rise to the occasion and be more humanitarian.
Right.
And how even after all this, a lot of it is, you're looking after your own, and you're not going to be necessarily nursing the person next to you. You're going to be taking care of your own family and stealing food and doing whatever you can to survive.
Right.
And if you get a chance to check out the whole manga series, there's quite a bit of it.
And what's it called again, Matt?
Barefoot Gen.
Barefoot Gen.
And it's really great. And even if you just watch the animated movie, there's 2 of them, I believe.
Yeah.
And they're available on DVD. Really good. Very well done. A very nice animated version of the manga. I think it does it justice.
It's Barefoot Gen. Is it Jen or
Gen?
Gen. Okay.
Yeah, the Japanese definitely have more latitude to do it since they were actually the victims of it.
Sure.
There's a movie that Toho did in 1961 called The Last War.
Oh, yeah.
With Frankie Sakai, who was, I think, in Mothra. And it's very, very somber, and it, like a lot of Toho special effects movies, it follows, it's a fairly straight drama, and it follows a relationship family story, but the overarching theme is that there's tensions with other countries in the world that are fictionalized, but it's supposed to be the U.S. and Russia, and culminates in a atom bombs devastating Japan. And one of the weird things about it is you're looking at a 1961 Toho movie with all these special effects, and Godzilla's not involved. It's weird that way. It's very, very somber. I don't know that I necessarily recommend it, but it's definitely interesting. And
it's a nice curiosity piece.
It is.
Yeah. Well, Gorath also tread the same kind of ground a little bit in that it's Gorath is 60s Toho. It's kind of like a Japanese version of When Worlds Collide. Basically.
And Armageddon.
And Deep Impact. And
where it's a giant meteor or planetoid coming towards Earth, and basically they have to either stop it or get off the planet, or it's going to destroy the entire Earth.
But I think the solution at the time was, instead of let's stop the comet, it was let's change Earth's orbit so the comet doesn't hit it.
They actually have like big like engines in the Arctic that move the planet, which actually never works.
Somehow there's a giant walrus.
Right.
Yeah, they had a giant monster in it. Yeah. Magma.
What did the walrus do?
Well, the walrus was interesting. Is the walrus was in the Japanese version, but for the American release of Gorath, they cut the walrus out.
Go figure.
Yeah, because it stood out like a sore thumb.
But you know the best thing about Gorath is that the pilots who are in charge of the whole thing, they launch into a musical number in the middle of nowhere, and they start singing the song like "We Are Space Pilots." It's a Japanese song, but it's awesome.
Yeah. And also Gorath itself is like a weird kind of glowing,
of course,
like on fire kind of meteor thing that goes.
Right.
Wow.
So it's
everything Toho. Cool. It has to have that sound. It has to glow.
Exactly.
And
there
great,
is
Sean.
one company, Iwakura in Japan, that actually did a Gorath figure. So they did a little miniature, They did a little miniature
of the actual Gorath.
The actual Gorath.
Well, actually, hey, just so you know, my wife got me a magma walrus figure for Christmas. So I have a vinyl figure of the
Save
giant
their
walrus.
marriage.
Yeah. So there you go.
That's what kept you together.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's beautiful.
Well, Joe,
Joe, what else do you got?
Well, one thing I want to mention, and I don't like the movie, but it contains the scariest scene I've ever seen in an apocalypse movie.
Okay.
And the movie is The Road.
I love the movie.
It's okay.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, that's
It's
interesting
okay.
because Matt has spoken before about this movie. He likes it a lot.
It's not a bad movie. I just don't. I don't really enjoy it.
What's the date?
But
On,
it's
what's
not-
the
it's
date
not-
on the road?
It's pretty recent. Yeah, 2006 or 7. Yeah.
8?
The Day Before Tomorrow.
This was a Cormac McCarthy novel?
Yes. And they changed
2009.
a lot
2009
for
The Road.
for the film. It's Viggo
They didn't,
Mortensen.
but they didn't change that much.
Viggo Mortensen, that's great.
It's not a bad movie. There's
Okay.
you would never watch it and go, "This is a bad movie."
Okay.
You
It's
would just
rough,
say,
though.
You would just say, "I like it" or "I don't like it." I wasn't that into it,
Yeah.
and I think here's why. I think because I love this one scene so much that the rest of the movie didn't live up to it.
Okay.
And that's the scene where they find like that house or whatever it is. It's him. Okay, so the plot
The
of
bunker
movie-
one or
yeah. Viggo Mortensen it's him and his kid.
Right.
And they're out in the road. They're out in the post-apocalyptic land and whatever. And he's like this crazy overprotective dad because they could die at any minute.
Sure,
And
yeah.
The kid doesn't understand, and that's the whole dynamic. But there's a scene where they find some kind of like cellar door, and they open it, and they get they go into a house, and in the basement of the house are all those fucking cannibals. That are, do you know what part I'm talking
Yes,
about?
yeah.
Where there is that's how it happens.
Well, the
right?
one that I might be getting two scenes confused. There's one where they find the bunker that's like right under a road almost,
and they're eating,
and they've got everything.
Yes.
They've got all kinds of food and
Yeah.
canned goods and so forth.
and then he makes them leave, and the kid's like, "I don't understand why we have to leave," and that's
we
what
can't.
it is.
Yeah, eventually this food is going to run out. We're going to have to do something. With our
Exactly.
lives.
But the scene where they find like literally a hive of cannibals and they have to run for their lives because these cannibals are going to eat them is the scariest scene I've ever seen in any apocalypse movie because it's so believable. It's so real. It's like I feel like that's exactly that's the thing that would happen.
When it comes down to it's just pure survival instinct.
Wouldn't you agree, though, that movie? Because I did read the book before I saw the film, and rarely do you read a book and then see the movie and like the movie, because I felt like it really captured the tone and feel of the book. Sure, it's grim. It is very grim, but that's what you want that story to be. Like, I want to feel like I'm walking that road with him.
I got to be honest, I didn't find it grim enough. I don't think it was that compared to these other movies we're talking about. I didn't think it was that grim.
But emotionally grim, because
It has a happy ending, you know.
yeah,
It's kinda like,
but is there really a happy ending in the post-apocalyptic America hellscape? I mean, like, we know, that kid now, the kid at the end of the movie is with this other family, but who knows what's going to happen after that? You know, they could be the cannibal family, and they're going to just fatten him up for tomorrow's meal.
that would have been awesome.
You should have saw the sequel.
Yeah,
the Toby Hooper sequel.
they could be killed off by Charlton
No,
Heston.
but
as the
what I
Omega
got
Man.
here's where Larry, I think, will agree with me. Is the thing in that story that really kept me interested was the family dynamic, the thing about protecting your child.
Yeah.
And that's all he was doing all through that movie was everything was about protecting the child, getting the child to the area where he's got the best chance. Go to the ocean. And then
right.
and
And
then the grim element was knowing that he was sick that entire time,
Right.
and it was a race against time,
Right.
to
Right.
get him to where
Right.
and he does
needed to be.
succeed.
Yes.
And I guess I didn't like it.
Well, thank you, thank
you know
you
what,
for
though?
recommending a film that you don't like.
You know what,
thank
Joe?
you.
You know what, Joe? I think I kind of respect you there, because I normally love the downbeat ending, so I think I can relate to that.
You know, it's
Yeah.
funny. I like to talk about films I'd like to recommend, not, hey,
I'm
here's
recommending
here's
it.
a film.
But-
I know
but this
you
is-
are.
But
You
this
are.
is this is about movies in general. Whether
And you're not
whether
dissuading
not.
it,
This
right?
is the
No,
topic of. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad one. In fact, my dad called me recently, and he had stumbled on it on Netflix or something, and he
He
was
said,
like,
"Hey, do you see The Road?"
Yeah, and he
told-
said he
like that.
really loved it, and I didn't go, I wasn't into it. I was like, yeah, it's a good movie, because I can write.
Right,
It is a
right.
good movie.
You didn't go, "Dad, you're a clown."
Yeah, it is a good movie, and we talked about the cannibal part, and he was like, yeah, that was scary. I was
Right,
like,
right.
yeah, but I remember Pat and I were just talking about this on our podcast, We'll See You in Hell. For whatever reason, we were talking about those random and very few far and in between moments when you're in a movie theater and you're in your adult life, you're legitimately scared. You see something
Right.
that legitimately scares you, and we both agreed that there were one or two scenes in It Follows that really like got under our skin.
Yeah.
I agree.
Girl throwing up in The Sixth Sense when he turns.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
The nurse being attacked in Exorcist 3.
Yes. Yeah. Which, by the way, I just got the special edition
Yes.
with the director's cut. and
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Can I
that
also
movie is
throw
really
in-
underrated. That
Yes,
movie
it is.
really
Yes, it
underrated.
It's a really great movie.
Can I also throw in the moment in The Descent when you see but don't see the creature before you finally see
you
them?
literally get a chill up your spine.
Yeah.
Like you can, even as a dog, when you can still genuinely get scared like that, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
But I saw The Road in the theater, and that cannibal scene, I was freaked out. I was scared.
Right.
And then that was kind of the only part in the movie like that. So I think
Right,
I think I wanted to see a little more of the it was a lot of the dad talking about the dread and the threats.
Well, I would argue that it's not necessarily a horror film. You know what I mean?
Definitely not.
Right.
So it's like that wasn't really the point of the movie to scare you. But I'm just curious if you guys have seen this. I'm going to throw this in there. I don't want to jump on anyone's turn or anything, or you could take my turn.
Clown.
I'm a clown. I am. I really am.
No,
Sometimes I
you're-
really am.
You're not a clown.
But
Come on.
have you seen the movie The Colony, which is 2013? And I saw it on Netflix. And
I feel like I have seen that.
and it's Lawrence Fishburne, Bill Paxton,
nice.
and it's kind of like Snowpiercer in the sense that it's a environmental catastrophe where the Earth is now covered in ice, like it's the whole world is ice ridden, and so there are these colonies where they're trying to survive, and they're keeping animals alive, and they're keeping plants alive.
I haven't seen it.
No,
And
I haven't
it's-
seen this
and it's
either.
actually pretty cool. And so there's this other colony that they have a relationship with, and they're like, "Hey, we'll look out for you. You look out for us." They get a like an SOS from the colony, the other colony, and so they go to check it out, and it turns out that other colony has been taken over by cannibals.
Oh, wow. Geez.
And,
All right. I'll
and
check
so
this
now
out.
the cannibals know that there are other humans. So Lawrence Fishburne and his group are trying to make their way back to their colony, and the cannibals are following them.
Sure.
And
interesting.
it's great. And it's Bill Paxton playing the lovable asshole that he always does.
Oh, he's great at that.
And I think it's a lot of fun. It's like a lot of movies. It's not perfect, and there are some cheesy elements, but overall, it's a really good ride.
Would you define it as a horror film, or is it more like The Road?
Action
where it's-
sci-fi or something.
I would say a little of everything. There are horrific moments, but I would say it's probably more of action sci-fi horror.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, well, look, I just want to jump into this because I know we only have so much time, but one of my absolute favorite films, which I think it's like an ultimate end of the world film, and that's When Worlds Collide. Of
course.
And we're
Yeah,
talking
classic.
about, this is like a classic from 1951, directed by Rudolph Mattei and produced by George Powell. The thing I love about this film, a special personal thing, because when I was 14, this was a big deal to me. My birthday was on a Saturday. I was turning 14 on a Saturday. And I said, hopefully, the creature feature movie that they have on Saturday, because, you know, Creature Features was on Saturday night. Hopefully, it's going to be on my birthday. It's going to be a good movie. And I had my gifts lined up, you know, to watch. And the movie was When Worlds Collide, which I had never seen before. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know much about this, but I'm sorry. And it's great. It's absolutely great. So imagine these astronomers find out that they do in Australia, they see that there appears to be this giant planet called Belus that is heading towards Earth, and it's like the trajectory is going to make them collide.
Right.
And
There
it just,
are
literally
two
collide.
planets, right?
well, there's a big main planet that's going
Right,
to collide
right.
with the Earth. Circling around that planet is a smaller one, which they've nicknamed Zyra, and it's about the size of the Earth.
Right.
And so what they do is the first realization is, okay, there's going to be this collision, but we have a theory. If we are able to build a special kind of
Space ark.
yes, that can actually propel us to the smaller planet, we think, in theory, that this planet can sustain
Can
life.
sustain life,
We can survive. The problem is, well, the spaceship that we built can only fit about 40 people. Well, why are you laughing? You think you can build like a space
I
shuttle?
know,
You can put like 20,000 people
Yeah, of all
on
the
it?
people I know, it's
No,
a tough decision.
but I bought it. I bought it, and it's so great. It has Richard Durr, who actually was in a Star Trek, classic Star Trek. Barbara Rush,
John
Peter,
Hoyt as the like cranky old millionaire guy who wants. I want to be on
the role he was born to play.
Yes, I want to be on that ship.
Yeah. He was. He plays Sidney Stanton, the wheelchair-bound millionaire.
Because he's like contributing a lot of money to build the thing, so he feels he deserves.
Well,
to
here's
be
the thing
on
that gets
Which he
me.
is kind of right.
Well, here's the thing that gets me. I mean, for our listeners, what's great about this movie? First of all, it's in color, beautiful Technicolor, and the special
Cool
effects,
special effects
are,
at the time.
great. It's fun. It's very classic 50s. It's a really neat film. And there's this love triangle. There's Stanton is great because he's a bad guy. What happens is when Dr. Hendren, the main scientist, goes to the government and says, "Look, there's just going to be this collision," and the government goes, "I don't think that's going to happen because it's a year away."
Applesauce.
Yes.
Right.
And so Stanton, who's this bitter millionaire in a wheelchair, goes, "Well, I don't relish dying, so go build it. I'll give you the money," because they got some money from some humanitarians, but not a lot.
Right,
it was
right.
Stanton's money that got them to build this thing.
Right.
As time gets closer, now they realize that the government says, "Oh my gosh, they are right. We can actually see the planet, and it's going to heading towards our way." And there's this great moment. You would think that if it's an organization, if it's like over 600 or 1,000 people building the spaceship, everyone has the intelligence, and you know you're a scientist or you're a builder. You know that not everyone can go on this spaceship. But there's this great moment where it kind of hits them as it gets to an hour before the planets are going to collide, where the group of scientists go, "Well, we should have voted," because it was like by lots. You had to pay.
Right.
And there's this great moment where they start to storm the spaceship.
Right.
But it's a great.
It's good. It's fun. Yeah.
It's a great classic. 50s.
It is a classic.
And look, the bummer is when to see the worlds collide. It didn't exactly satisfy what I wanted, but it's still really, really cool.
Yeah.
There's some criticism about the end, but still, it's a fun film.
I love the end.
Anyway,
good.
so when worlds collide.
Okay.
So Joe, why don't you take it? Do you have one last one?
Yeah. I mean, I certainly think that it's an obvious choice, but I think the Planet of the Apes movies, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, definitely.
Apply for this. But I would like to just mention, too, that I feel like not enough people mention. I love Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Thank you.
I think
It
Beneath
truly
the Planet
is
of
an
the
end
Apes.
of the world movie.
Yeah.
That is truly.
I love that movie. It does not get the respect it deserves.
People, not only that, people scoff at it. And,
Scoff?
People scoff.
Yes,
I'll tell
they
you
do.
why I like that
I've
movie.
heard scoffing.
People scoff at it.
I've heard them scoff.
It's a dark, twisted movie.
It is a really weird, dark, twisted, almost artsy sequel.
Yes.
It really
Yeah.
goes off in this odd direction.
All
and
the
I
sequels
think
do, which I like
Yeah.
about that franchise.
Yes.
They all go off in their own individual direction.
that one is
It's a big fuck you to any expectations after the first one.
really,
I mean, it really
really.
is because they throw everything at that script.
But after the first one, there were a lot of different ideas that were followed for a while. And then finally they settled on that one. And it was for different reasons, like Charlton Heston's availability. But part of the fascination of that movie is just how it developed that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
And the ending, my God.
yeah, the fact that it ends with that nuclear bomb going off that's now destroyed the apes too.
Which Charlton Heston set off, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Heston gets the damn apes in the end.
So great.
But then in the nick of time, Caesar and what's her name?
Milo
escape.
and Zero.
Yeah, or Milo and Zero escape. And then they go back, and then they have Caesar in what was present times. Right. Movie
But what's
came out
great-
in the
what-
third movie, and then that's how
Yes.
the planet that's what starts it.
Right.
It's so crazy.
It's a time paradox.
Yeah.
But what's great about Beneath is that by the end of Beneath, you don't know any of that other stuff is coming.
No.
So
Right.
all you're left with is that's it. You're fucked.
Or say the line. Say the
Is
line
now
at the
dead
end.
or something,
No,
And now the earth is a burned out cinder. Paul Frees?
Isn't it Paul Frees?
Yeah, and
I don't think he says
and
burned out cinder,
or
though.
whatever
That-
it is now a
that's
dead
what-
The
planet.
Earth is now dead. or
Is
something like
now
that.
is
Yeah.
now dead.
It's
The third planet from the sun is now dead.
Right.
That's right.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I mean, it might as well be that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And it wasn't credited as Paul Frees, but it's obviously
It's
Paul
Paul
Frees.
Frees.
But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what's.
That's our-
But again, I remember seeing that as a kid on TV because that was
Yeah.
the first time I was able to see
know.
it was on
Yeah,
TV.
same here.
And like, what?
I saw the original Planet of the Apes as a young kid. I don't even remember seeing it. I just know that I saw it when I was young. And I liked it, and I thought it was pretty cool, and talking monkeys and all this stuff.
Apes.
Yeah. But when I was in college, when I was really getting into pot, I saw...
There you go.
I saw Beneath the Planet of the Apes. I caught it like on, the local Fox station or whatever on a Saturday. And I was like, I have to fucking buy all of these movies. This is crazy. Because I had no idea. I always, just in my head, out of some unjustified prejudice, wrote off the rest of the series as just like, oh, they're probably these because I think I thought of the TV show or something.
Yeah.
So I just imagine these schlocky.
Because like even in Battle for the Planet of the Apes, you see the slight mutants. You think they're going to end up being the telepathic mutants in Beneath.
Down the road.
Like the starting of them. It's cool.
It's really, it's really brilliant. So I love that movie. And then just to give a nod to one of the newer ones, I really thought Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was very, very well done.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
I didn't like Rise, but I did like Dawn quite a bit.
I liked them both, but I feel like also the effects kind of caught up with that movie too.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course, War of the Planet of the Apes, or War for the Planet of the Apes, I think it's called, is coming out soon. So we'll see where that goes.
But Joe, I just want to say, what a great way to end it with Beneath the Planet of the Apes, because I think that is one of the ultimate apocalyptic or end of the world
fans
movie.
Here,
that
man.
is great.
We love that movie.
Joe, thank you so much for coming tonight, man. I really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys. Fun. I love coming on, man. Any time. Let's try to do it. Let's just try to hang out at least sooner than. I haven't. What was it? A year less?
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Well,
a little too soon. Okay.
I had to get over the clown thing. So.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything you got coming up or working on anything?
Yeah, I definitely. My hour special comes out on Comedy Central. It's my first hour.
Nice.
Special.
Wow.
Awesome.
It's called You Let Me Down.
The story of our lives.
Yeah.
It speaks to everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. That comes out February 3rd at midnight, uncensored. An uncensored broadcast, and they're going to replay it uncensored February 5th at 1 a.m. And then February 7th, it'll hit the internet for purchase.
All right.
The special and download the album version of it. And then also, my friend Pat Walsh and I have our horror movie podcast,
Yes.
We'll See You in Hell,
Yes.
which is a review show. It's like a Siskel and Ebert where we curse at each other.
Only much better. Yes.
Yeah.
Because one of them isn't dead.
Yeah.
Or they're both not dead. I don't know.
I think they, both, right? Yeah.
Ebert is alive in my heart.
But thank you guys. This is always so fun,
Awesome.
man.
Thank you, Joe.
I love talking about this stuff, and I'm in all four of your deep knowledge of this stuff. It's really
You're in good company.
Yeah.
We will talk you to death, man.
I mean, I can keep up with you guys for a while, but then like you guys
We go deep. We
go real deep.
nerd deep.
But it's awesome. Like it's admirable. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us, man.
Yeah.
Always, anytime.
Awesome.
Time for a listener shout out.
Shout out! Who do we got today?
This is another one that's long overdue. A long-time listener. His name is Rob Lorich.
Rob.
What a great name. I like that name.
Rob is actually a contributor to the Dennis Miller radio show.
Holy fuck.
Cool.
He says that show prep is his life's blood, that and chocolate.
I love chocolate too.
Is that a passive-aggressive way of critiquing us?
Rob's been listening for a long time, and recently I've discovered that Rob is also a big movie soundtrack fan, especially
You and that other guy.
Me.
especially the music of John Barry, who is a big fan of.
Right.
I like John Barry.
Yeah.
Rob has got great taste, and as I told Rob on Twitter, and I'll tell all our listeners, we are planning a soundtrack or film music episode.
We'll get to it,
for the
yes.
near
Yes,
future.
we will.
Rob, thank you very much for listening. We appreciate
Thanks,
your
Rob.
support. Meanwhile, let's also remind our listeners that you can find us on Facebook at Monster Party TV, also YouTube at Monster Party TV. Our Twitter handle is at Monster Party HQ. Instagram is also Monster Party HQ. You can also find us on Google Play Music for those of you with Androids.
Android.
And if you have a moment and you're listening to us on iTunes, please take a moment and write a review on iTunes because we would love to hear from you.
We would. And who knows? We may do a shout out for you.
And we do have Monster Party swag available. The cap is available.
Oh, that cap.
That cap
Such a great
Oh,
is
my God.
available on our eBay store, which is Monster Party Store, easy to remember.
And what's great about that cap is that it's got so many fibers.
Oh, yeah.
That you could almost fill it with soup and use it as a bowl.
And if there's like a nuclear war, you can wear that cap to protect you from the fallout.
It's lead lined, so don't lick it.
You would survive.
It's not lead lined, but it does have like 17,000 stitches stitching that little Monster Party logo.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a high quality cap, not one of these cheap hats.
Fly by night caps.
Not one of those trucker caps.
No.
None of your silk screening here, boys.
No, it's a good quality cap.
On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James GONIS.
Keep America strong.
Watch films about the apocalypse before it's too late.
It's not fair.
Okay, so obviously the end of the world is such a massive topic.
It's huge.
That we could go on forever, and we probably should. So
ever and ever.
So let's add a little bonus segment here where we can talk about a few more films that make us shiver in our boots, but also delight us.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one thing, too, about end of the world movies is they can cover all ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Like you can have the big budget movies like When Worlds Collide or The Day After, where you see all the destruction and there's casts of thousands and stuff like that. But there's also that kind of, it's almost like a subgenre of end of the world movies where it's always like a small knit group of people.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like one that I think of is 1951 by Arch Obler, 5.
Oh, I love that movie.
Which is great.
I
it's
I haven't seen this.
That's
Shawn.
a good one. You
I
like
know,
this one?
I know
because it's kind of again like that kind of Twilight Zone idea where it's just a group of people. There's been a Holocaust. There's like a pregnant woman.
Mm-hmm.
There's like this guy's like kind of a beatnik poet guy. There's an African American guy. There's a banker who's like a greedy guy, and there's like the guy who's like kind of like a fascist. You know,
So there's 5 people,
and it's like and it's just the tension and the stuff that happens amongst this group, this people, like what happens. It's really good.
Was it a play or
No. It's
This
just
was
like,
made
it's like these are the last survivors in the city of after everybody's gone. But
And in case you're wondering, the fascist guy tends to not be so nice.
right.
But Arch Obler did have a background in radio, didn't he?
Yes.
Sure, lights out.
That's right. I mean, maybe it's possible that 5 was originally a play. I'm not sure.
Could be.
But it was a cool movie. And along the same lines, there was, it was a little more heavy-handed, but there was The World, the Flesh, and the Devil, 1959, with Harry Belafonte, Inger Stevens, and Mel Ferrer.
Oh,
It was
my
kind of like
gosh.
triangle.
Yeah.
So you had a black guy, a white guy, and the delicious Inger Stevens.
Sean's another one I haven't seen.
Yeah, that's really good too. And I agree with you. It is a little heavy-handed.
A little bit, but
I still think it's good. And I still think it's a compelling film. I would say that 5 is better.
I agree. And on the much more kind of lower budget end, similar in some ways to The World of Flesh and the Devil, was Roger Corman's Last Woman on Earth.
Yeah.
1960 with
Now, I have never seen that all the way through.
that's a fun one. It's very similar and on just on a very small
Last
budget.
Woman on
it's like
Earth.
there's the oxygen has run out in the world or something, and somehow these 3 people are survived. It's like Betsy Jones Moreland, Anthony Carbone, and Robert Towne, the screenwriter, playing one of the characters. And it's the typical kind of love triangle in kind of low budget Roger Corman style. But the other one that I really like with Matt, I know you know about this one.
Okay.
This is 62, a very paranoid end of the world thriller, which is This Is Not a Test.
Yeah, that's a great
That's
one.
a great one. It's a highway patrolman gets a thing on the radio. You know, he's out. He patrols the desert highway, and he gets word that there's like potential, nuclear attack, and that's all he knows. And so he has to stop everybody on the road. So it's just him on this stretch of highway, and everybody comes up.
And he's all business. This guy.
He's like by the book, and he's running the show. And there's like a hep cat kind of beating it guy and this floozy chick. There's like an uptight business guy. There's a guy
when
who's
you
like,
can't get Touch Connors.
yeah, it's actually Michael Green, I think, who plays the. But there's a criminal too on the run. So they don't know what's going on, and it's like they're trying to get police reports. But as great as that, the guy who plays the highway patrolman, he starts to unravel. He starts to go kind of nuts, and it's really good. It's that kind of thing where it's just about the people and how they're dealing with this extreme situation. It's like potentially the end of the world, and they're all the infighting and all the paranoia. That kind of genre of movie I really like.
I agree. I like that movie, and it does a lot with very little.
Yeah. Very well done.
Well, that type of story was the basis of the novel that made me a Stephen King fan, which was The Stand from 1970.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Have you guys all read this?
Talk about a minor, small little story.
Yeah,
The
really.
Stand.
No,
Yeah.
but taking a global cataclysm and making it, more relatable because you're dealing with the human drama. Have you guys all read The Stand?
I knew you were going to
I
have.
have.
No, I have
read the
not
book.
read The Stand.
What?
I have read Silver Bullet and Christine and other things, but I have not read The Stand.
Why have you not read The
The Stand
I
made
have not
me
either. I
a
just-
King fan.
Really?
And it's a long novel, but I've read it like 4 times, the unexpurgated version. I love that.
you read
Did
it
you
4
read it? Did you
times?
read it while standing?
Sometimes.
Sorry.
No, but it's...
Want to try that joke again?
tremendous book, and
I love it. Yeah,
it's
I don't
just
think there's ever really been. Well, there's only been one that TV
94,
miniseries,
94,
and no one
yeah.
no one has yet to do that book justice.
Although that miniseries did a pretty good job considering how
Really?
ambitious
I
it
did.
was.
I did see that.
I thought it was dull.
kind of
It could
plodding.
stand to be updated, sure.
Yeah.
And Jamie Sheridan as Randall Flagg was nobody's idea of Randall Flagg. He's
Yeah,
not
He was
pure evil.
awkward to me.
Or
yeah.
the walking dude,
Right.
as he's known.
Yeah. But if you haven't read The Stand, if there's any one single King novel you got to read, it's that one.
All right.
Really?
Right.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you know of this novel, but in the same kind of tradition as The Stand, there is an author named Robert R. McCammon, and he did a book in 1987 called Swan Song.
Okay.
And it's funny because it's almost like another version of The Stand. And
Really?
also Stephen King actually likes McCammon as a writer. And it's interesting because I don't know exactly what he thinks about this novel, but a lot of the same kind of beats where instead of the walking dude, there's this guy with the crimson eye, and he has this red eye, and he's this demonic force that's walking across America after a nuclear holocaust and kind of inflaming everything, making everybody appeal to their worst instincts and getting everyone to be horrible. And there's this homeless woman who comes upon this piece of glass that is able to bring her in like a psychic realm where she's able to see things in the future. And this guy with the crimson eye knows that this is an object of power. And so he's chasing her. And meanwhile, there's another character named Swan, who is this little girl who has the ability to make things grow. In the post-apocalyptic wasteland. And so she gets a tree to come alive again. And so he's also interested, the guy with the crimson eye is after her as well. And so it's this trek across America. And there's this nice little element too where the side effects of this bomb is that people start growing this weird, really thick growth on their face that almost covers up their mouths and their entire their eyes and everything. And good and bad people develop this thing at the same time. But what happens is that when the thing finally breaks off, the good people, it's like their faces are renewed and they don't have any lesions from radiation or anything. But the bad people, when it comes off, they're just like horrible, misshapen.
Wow.
cults. And it's really a cool, nice little plot element. And when this atom bomb first hits, there's the shelter that this military guy is kind of a figurehead of, that he's not really running, but he's like the guy that they use for people who want to pay to get into the shelter. Like, hey, this guy's going to be here, so come on in. So this one family has this kid, and this kid is like kind of lost in a fantasy world where he plays this knight game, and he sees everybody in every scenario as he's a knight and he's fighting against, the enemies. And after the bomb drops, he becomes the sidekick of this military commander who just warps him. And they end up being the villains of the story. And he's this little kid in his warped fantasy world ends up realizing that now the post-apocalyptic wasteland is his game board. His playground where he can finally live out these horrible fantasies that he's had as this kind of D&D minded child. And it's good. There's a lot of really wonderful elements of this story. Again, there's a lot of beats that are very similar to The Stand, but it's a good read.
And it's
called Swan Song.
Swan Song. Okay.
1987, Robert R. McCammon.
So it's a book.
Interesting.
It is a book. You would have to read it.
You have to read it.
You would have to read it.
There's not an audio.
There may be.
Are there pictures?
There, you could draw some.
Come on. I don't need.
I can send over a caricature artist,
cool.
and you could have the guy with the crimson eye on a skateboard.
Cool.
But, we've also mentioned Twilight Zone a couple of times, and there were several Twilight Zone episodes that did include end-of-the-world scenarios.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Probably the most famous one being from the first season, Time Enough at Last with Burgess Meredith.
Right, which is classic.
Which is awesome. Yeah, and I'm sure most of our listeners know the story. No real need to rehash it, but...
Well, I don't know it. Why
You
don't
really
you tell
don't?
me?
Really?
No, for our listeners though. For there's some people out there. Don't just assume
guy, he just
that
loves-
people
yeah.
out there.
But you almost can't give the story away.
That's true.
Okay, well, don't.
It's weird. It's like, so how far would you go with the story?
Don't give it away. Don't give away.
A
the
guy who
ending.
likes to
Everybody
read.
has
A guy who
this.
likes to read and never has enough time to read because
Right.
he's
And
always
has-
being pulled away by his job or his wife.
His harpy wife.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Staple of every Sterling script.
That's true.
He works in a bank. Finally, he takes some time to read by reading in the bank vault. And then an H-bomb explodes. It
Killing everybody.
Destroys the world.
Yeah.
But since he happens to be in a vault, he's saved. And wouldn't you know it, there's a library nearby where there's all the books he can spend the rest of his life reading and happiness on his own.
Time enough at last.
Time
That's
enough at last.
great
And then
story.
there
Something
is
happens.
There is an O. Henry type twist ending,
Yes.
which is famous now. And,
It's great.
but often parodied.
Okay, well, let me just throw this out because we were talking about pictures and stuff. There's actually a really cool short story. Okay, books. There's a short story.
Books.
Look, there's this great short story by Ray Bradbury, and I think it's a great little short story that talks about the end of the world, and that is There Will Come Soft Rains. Short story by Ray Bradbury is published May 6, 1950 in Collier's, and it basically tells the story of it goes through this house of the future. And it does the dishes, it gets food ready, it vacuums, and it does all this stuff for
All
the family,
automated, right?
which isn't there.
Because there has been
been
nuclear war.
A nuclear war. And it's like there is a wall that has shadow imprints of the family
right.
that was outside. But the house continues.
That's
the house
creepy.
continues. But then nature outside continues. But it's like everything that was alive is gone. But it's the wind is still there. Trees are still there. And there's some damage that's caused to the house, which sets fire. But the animatronics of the house still continue to move. And what's cool is there was a really great comic book in the 50s. And I'm trying to remember if it was like The Vault of Horror or something.
No, like Weird Science.
Weird Science.
Or
That's
Weird
what
Fantasy.
It was. Yeah, that's what it was. And they actually draw it out. And basically
cool.
the short story. And my wife, who's an English teacher at a high school, she teaches a focus on science fiction class, and that's one of the things she teaches.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's really cool for the kids, the high school kids.
a great story.
It is a great short story. So I would
Yeah, and
recommend. It's not as long as The Stand, but for someone for someone like me, it's a great read. It's a quick read, and
it's a nice metaphor
yes.
of like the breakdown of society and the breakdown of technology. After it kind of reminds me of one of those. There was a series that they did of like what happens after we're gone. Do you know what I'm talking
Yes,
about?
yes,
yeah,
yes.
right.
It's after people.
After Earth.
After no,
it's-
not after.
Oh, no,
Earth.
after Earth.
No.
Not the Will Smith thing.
World without people or
something like that. Yeah,
right.
but it shows like
What
once we're
happens
gone
after a year.
Yeah,
after
and like
10 years.
What happens to the power plants?
Yes.
And what happens to
Or what happens to a skyscraper
Right.
after? Okay, well, it's strong, it's sturdy. Then you start doing after 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years,
Yeah.
and as you start
Really
to go
interesting.
through it, like for example, like the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, there's maintenance on it every day of the year.
Right, right.
It's constant, whether it's being painted or something. Imagine that if people were just gone.
Right.
And the bridge is
No
just
cars,
standing
no
there
people.
with no. It's like no one's there to maintain it.
Right.
Whether it's a building, a bridge, or no one's around to maintain it, what would happen?
Yeah.
Right,
No, I
interesting.
like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think we should also hit on a couple classics.
Of course.
I think of the genre.
Sure.
First of all, this is probably one of the most famous. On the Beach,
Oh, yes.
See,
1959.
I've never seen
Stanley
this.
Kramer.
I've heard
I
about
can't
this.
believe you haven't seen
I
that.
haven't either.
Look, hey,
Really?
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unconscionable.
you know what? You have more time on your hands than I do.
Oh,
perhaps.
do I?
Look,
Classic,
I don't know.
All you got
I-
as a kid.
Yeah,
You put
look,
out some food for him, and
listen.
Is it a must see? Because when I think of that,
No, it's a must see.
I think
No,
like
yes.
Stanley,
No,
Stanley Kramer back in the time. It was like, oh, we're going to be like socially relevant. You know,
what the hell? You're mocking this thing you haven't even seen.
James, Mr. Robert Altman, your comedy, you're criticizing On the Beach you haven't even seen.
No, see,
it's a
want-
classic
might
in
be
the
a little
world
bit
movie.
preachy. I
It's a
don't know.
mad apocalypse.
Yeah.
I want no, Matt.
No,
I'm
it's good.
aware of this. I
Gregory
wanted to
Peck,
see it. Yes.
Ava Gardner, Fred Astaire.
It is a great.
It is a
Anthony Perkins.
great.
James,
movie.
it has a
beautifully
great
acted movie.
cast.
It is great,
It's a
and
kind
it
of movie
is.
you would like actually.
Okay, I'll check it
And
out. will
I
check
don't
it
think
out.
it's preachy at
know
all.
what?
I think it's very grim.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just
And
don't
it's-
know.
Let's
don't know.
we'll watch together.
We'll have to
You guys
watch
should
it,
watch
yeah.
it
You know, we
together.
go down to Comic-Con. We're going to put that on.
While you're driving. Perfect.
And you guys,
Create your own apocalypse.
and of course, 1964 gave us two famous ones:
Oh.
Dr. Strangelove and
right.
Failsafe.
Failsafe.
Same year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two kind of ends of the spectrum.
I think-
in tone.
both really great. You know, everybody loves Strangelove.
And
Right.
and I think that's why Failsafe doesn't get its due, because if I remember correctly,
Failsafe is
Strangelove
great,
came
actually.
out before Failsafe.
Oh, I think-
no.
okay, did it?
Yes,
Same year, but before
Same
it.
year, but
Okay.
and so what happened was, so everyone sees Doctor Strangelove, and there's this comedic thing to it.
Sure.
So then when Failsafe comes along, which has a great cast too,
It's the serious
God.
version.
It is.
of
It really is.
Strangelove.
It really is.
serious.
yeah.
It is
It's the other side of the coin.
fantastic. It is
Yeah.
great. But
Such good acting.
people, there are stories of people laughing in it
Oh,
only
really?
because they had Dr. Strangelove in
Right.
their
Yeah,
mind.
no, it's
nothing,
fantastic.
and it's both films are great on their own.
They're both-
When I saw them, you know, like all of us, I'm sure we saw it on TV, unaware of the timing of either.
Right,
and we
right,
just
right.
assessed them as the movies that they were
On their own merit.
on their own merits.
I saw mine in high school. I saw Failsafe in high school.
Yeah.
But and I actually saw.
Wow,
See, the
geez.
funny thing is, I saw it before I saw Doctor Strangelove, Sean. So,
Oh, okay,
so to
okay,
me,
yeah.
which is how I think people should see these.
Right.
And so basically, fail-safe, for people who don't know, the term fail-safe, it is what is to prevent us from having any kind of nuclear accident within the controls of launching the bomb.
Also, more or less, the Doctor Strangelove scenario,
Right,
which
yeah,
is the
no.
behind the scenes of, well, how could this happen?
Right.
Accidentally.
Oh my
Yeah.
God! I mean, Henry Fonda, Daniel Hurley, Walter Matthau.
Walter Matthau.
is so chilling in that movie
Yeah.
because he's the coldest
Yeah.
son of a bitch in that
Yeah.
movie.
It's so
Oh, he's
unlike
so good.
anything he's
and
done.
also,
Yes.
that is a movie where it's really just talking.
Absolutely, it's just
Yeah.
acting and talking,
And
it's,
it is riveting.
Fritz Weaver.
There's
so
not
good.
a bad performance
There's
in it.
No.
there's a terrific scene. There's a terrific scene. You have Henry Fonda, who plays the American president, and there's a scene where he has his Russian interpreter, which is played by
Larry
a
Hagman,
very young
who's
Larry Hagman.
great.
And what's so cool is there's this moment. It's like something's happened. Henry Fonda, as the president, needs to talk to
The Russian-
head of Soviet Union.
Right.
And so he has this moment where he's just doing little small talk with Larry Hagman.
Right.
They're trying to do this small talk because, as the president, he feels, well, this is what I should do, and you can sense the tension
Oh,
with
God,
Larry
yeah.
Hagman
And
going.
Larry Hagman's being very polite.
Yes,
and
very
like,
polite,
yes, sir,
but
and,
he knows, and
he just pours a glass of water.
And Henry Fonda says, "Now listen, when you listen to the Russian premier, when he's talking to me, he may say something to me, and you could translate it. But what I'm not getting, what I may not get,
you
is
want to do more than just translating.
exactly
Yeah.
interpret." His emotion,
His
his tone,
right.
and that's what he really needs. And there's this great moment where Larry Hagman is interpreting for the Russian prime minister, and he says, "I know nothing about this," and he covers the phone. And he goes, "No, he does."
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
great.
it oh my God, it just sends chills up my spine. If you haven't seen either movie, I would suggest seeing Failsafe first, and then go to not
They're
to take
both-
away
no,
from
they're both,
Dr.
They're
Strangelove.
both kind of classic. They really are. They really are. Yeah, good ones.
There's also a movie that I really enjoyed called Right at Your Door, which is 2006.
Ooh.
And this is a
know that
film about there's a bunch of dirty bombs that go off in Los Angeles. And so the premise is that after this bomb goes off and the atmosphere has been contaminated, what the people try to do is protect themselves with duct tape and saran wrap. They try to...
What? Duct tape?
Yeah, like try to make the house so like none of this stuff
Like
can come in. The air can't come in, right?
I got you. Sure.
And so this guy does this, but then his wife comes home and she's been out in this stuff. And he doesn't want to let her in because she's contaminated.
No.
Yeah. And
Oh,
so,
that's horrible.
and it's this long series of like, look, as soon as we figure out everything, I will let you in, but right now I can't. And then there's a little, I guess you would say, kind of an O. Henry ending.
Wow.
But a very interesting movie and one that you should check out.
Along the lines of Testament, I haven't seen this, but I've read about it, and I think it's an animated movie called Where the Wind Blows, and it's from England.
Well, I don't know that.
And it's about a couple in the English countryside, and they're a devoted couple, but there's the aftermath of a nuclear fallout, and they just don't know how much time they have left. I think it's called Where the Wind Blows, and it has to do with the wind blowing the fallout toward them.
Right.
And it sounds like it's heartbreaking. Again, I shouldn't be talking about a movie I haven't seen.
No, you shouldn't.
But let me talk about
Our
a movie.
special, we'll cut this out section.
Let me talk about a movie that I have seen.
Oh, yes.
From 1977, there's a movie called The Last Wave, directed by Peter Weir.
Oh, yeah, that's a great movie.
It's
film.
like the second movie he made after Picnic at Hanging Rock, and it stars
Even weirder film.
yes, Richard Chamberlain as a DA who gets assigned to a murder case of Aborigines. And he develops this sort of psychic connection to these Aborigines, and he's also got visions, these apocalyptic visions.
Like giant tidal waves, right? Kind of
Right.
engulfing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the freeways that he's driving on, and he's in the middle of all this water with fish swimming around.
Yeah, it's really, really weird.
And it's actually hypnotic. And at the end of it, it does hint that he's part of this pending apocalypse. A terrific mood. It's not something you can necessarily understand, but unlike Quintet that we were talking about before,
Right.
you can get into it, you can appreciate it, and come away from it with something. So I do recommend The Last Wave, Peter Weir, 1977.
Yeah, it's
I
more
love
it's
it.
more like dreamlike and kind
It's
of
very
surreal.
dreamlike.
Like it's like you don't know if it's in his mind. Is he really having these hallucinations? Are they of things to come? Is he like seeing stuff that's going to really happen? It's really strange. But
And it
it's
does
good.
really draw you in. All those Aboriginal actors, too, are, I think,
Right.
Yeah,
brilliant.
fantastic.
Well, David Gulpilil, who's like the John Wayne of Aboriginal
was he in like
actors, he's-
Walkabout too?
He's
I think
in Walkabout.
Yeah.
He was even in Australia, the movie that was made a few years ago.
Right.
If there's ever like a big role for an Aboriginal, it's David Gulpilil.
Yeah, being an Aborigine.
Yeah, it's him.
Another one that I really like, which is like a classic 50s, which is, I don't want to say lighthearted. It's more light in the sense that, okay, if there's a nuclear bomb that goes off, hey, we can still survive it. And that's the movie Panic in Year Zero. This is
yeah.
1962.
One of my favorites of all time.
I actually saw this on Creature Feature as well.
Love it.
And what's really interesting about this is it stars Ray Milland, who also directed it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
it-
Now, was that the only thing he ever directed? Do we know? We don't have to.
I don't know. I know he directed this,
Yeah.
and the one thing I really liked about this is, Ray Milland just kind of had this all-around dad kind of feel to him, and so he has these couple kids. Frankie Avalon was one of them. Yeah,
That's right.
And so basically, what happens is after hey, a day at work this weekend, hey, family, we're gonna go out and do our camping trip. We're gonna go out.
They got
camping.
the camper trailer.
Yeah, they got and this is like what maybe an upper middle class family would do.
It's
back
like the
in the
long
50s.
trailer gone horribly wrong.
Well, no, not exactly, Sean. It's not quite.
You
like
mean it's
that.
gone right?
Yeah, no, but
You
check
hate
this
these
out.
people.
No, I love these people. I really love these people. They go out and they stop along the side of the road if they've driven a little ways, at this diner, and there's this explosion way off in the distance. Oh my gosh, that's where the city is, and oh my god, what was that? What about Grandma? Let's call check on Grandma. You can't get a hold of Grandma.
Can't get a hold of anybody.
No, and they decide, well, let's try to go back and get Grandma because we think something's happened, some kind of explosion or something. They can't get back to go get Grandma.
Right.
Traffic and people are trying to get back to the city, and that's when Ray Milland realizes, okay,
Something bad has happened.
Something bad,
Right.
And he thinks in his mind, society is going to fall apart.
And we got to get ahead of it.
Exactly, Matt. So what he does is, okay, family, let's go. We're going to do our camping trip. They stop at a little town where it's, okay, let me pick up some more supplies.
And they look for a place that's off the beaten track.
Off the beaten track,
Right,
Matt.
And they find this little town that you could tell hasn't really heard about anything yet.
But as he starts to get some of this stuff, the guy says, "Oh, this is a few more bucks," and Ray Milland kind of goes into his bandit thing where he goes, take this kind of,
He ends up robbing the store.
Basically robbing him, yeah.
But then promising that he will pay this guy back.
Right,
exactly. So what's interesting is, think of this in terms of 1950. This is an early idea.
62.
Sorry, 60. Yeah.
1950,
It's an
60s,
early idea of okay, if there is a nuclear bomb that goes off, what's going to happen? So long story short, they go to the farther into the camping area where they camped as when these kids were younger, and try to make a little cave into their home. But they encounter some people. There's some hooligans.
Some classic 60s thugs.
Hooligans who had messed with them earlier.
Yeah.
And then now there's a bunch of them in this house. And they've got this sex slave.
Which is
Right.
and it's weird because it actually scared me, Matt, watching it as a kid.
I think it's effective. I think it's very effective.
And I mean, in
considering the time, watching it through the eyes of the time.
What's funny, Sean, is you say, well, I keep reminding myself, it's 62. It feels like a 1950s movie.
Yeah,
It still has an Ozzie and Harriet type of feel, but still kind of a twisted. It's like if Ozzie and Harriet went out there and there was this nuclear holocaust, what would they do? They're good, decent people.
Well, a kind of English counterpart to that movie is from 1970 called No Blade of Grass.
And I looked at that, and I had never seen it. Is that any
I
good?
have never seen that,
Cornell
Sean.
Wilde, the actor, directed it because he did Naked Prey.
Yes,
I love
Cornell
Cornell
Wilde.
Wilde.
Great.
No Blade of Grass is basically Nigel Davenport is the father with his family, and this deadly virus hits London, and they're trying to get to Scotland because they think that's where it's going to be kind of safe.
Right.
It's a very similar thing where they meet lots of biker gangs and hooligans.
Is it a good movie?
It's good, but it's very heavy-handed and kind of over the top and histrionic. But it's a little over the top. But is it entertaining though? Because it's a lot more. It's more violent, and Nigel Davenport, lets it all out. Trying to do anything to protect his family.
Yeah.
It is a fun movie.
Okay, well,
It reminds me of the 70s show. Was it 70s Survivors?
Yeah, a little bit like that, only a little more, more violent and much less subtle. But
Yeah.
but it's fun though.
That's an English show where it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah,
a virus hits the world and wipes out everybody except for a select few, and then society falls apart and they've got to deal with kind of like Walking Dead,
it's
like town overlords and that kind of thing.
But
and
then
then
very really detailed as far as how it
a
explores.
show that kind of falls apart at the end.
It does kind of
By the end, it's like, how do we get our crops to grow correctly? And that's not why I tuned in.
Well, on the subject of viruses, also going back to Japan, I want to mention a movie directed by Kinji Fukasaku, who directed Battle Royale and The Green Slime,
right?
among many, many others.
Slime.
And it's called Virus.
Right.
It's
I've never seen this.
1980. Honest to God, I've had it on DVD for 20 years. I have not watched it yet.
I know it,
20 years.
Well, I know it's a movie that has some American
Like
actors in it too.
Chuck Connors,
Bose Fenton, Sonny Chiba's in it.
Yeah,
George Kennedy.
right.
Yeah, it was like a big budget movie, and I don't know if it's a kind of thing where they added American scenes or not. I don't know.
I think they did.
It was
I
a
think
co-production.
Robert Vaughn or somebody.
Maybe, but it's one I've never seen, and I want to see that one.
I think it's very, very. From a little I've seen of it, it's pretty slow moving.
Yeah. I'm curious.
Very,
though.
very earnest, but you got to commit to it and maybe take a look at it, see if it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
Okay. We have time, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's I tell you, of all the grim scenarios though of end of the world movies, I think if there was really truly an end of the world, the end of the world I would like to be is the one depicted in Night of the Comet from 1984.
Night of the
Because it's with Catherine Mary Stewart and Kelly Maroney.
Yeah.
And they're Valley
Kelly
Girls,
Maroney.
and they go shopping, and there's zombies that they have to fight, and some
Not too many of them, though, right?
No, and some deranged scientists played by Mary Warrenov and Jeffrey Lewis, I think. But it's a fun 80s.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay. But I mean, it's Catherine Mary Stewart and Kelly Maroney, so
Well, yeah.
Larry, you had one?
We talked a lot about we've done some big movies, some small movies, we've done some big television, some books and short stories. One of the classic TV episodes that I can think of that had to deal with the end of the world actually is a Star Trek episode, and it's not necessarily about the end of the world, but until you get to the end of the episode, and that's the film "Let That Be Your Last Battlefield."
Oh no!
Now this is the one where it's most famous for. There are these two beings that The Enterprise captures these two people, which are one is black on one side and white on the other, and the other was white on one side and black on the other, but they're opposites. And
Get it?
Yeah.
So the racial conflict is because one is black on the left side and one is black on the right side.
Now, are you guys poking fun at this?
Without a doubt.
Well,
Okay,
hands down.
It's one of the sillier episodes, I think.
See, I don't find it silly. There's some great little. There's a great
talk about
monologue.
heavy-handed, though.
Oh my God!
Okay,
like a mallet.
So these two clowns,
now
heavy-handed.
clowns.
I'm just saying, if you like classic Star Trek, what's great is where these two are finally in each other's grasp.
It's Beale and
they
Loki, right?
And they, Captain Kirk, they look at the planet that they're finally got to.
Oh, I see.
And
right.
the whole planet is destroyed. The two sides have basically hated each other so much that they've just released their bombs on each other, and the whole planet is engulfed in fire. And here you have these last two remaining beings watching their whole planet burn up. And they decide to, well, screw it. We're not going to shake hands and try to make amends. They're going to
continue fighting on the planet,
and where it ends. So
it's Lou Antonio and Frank Gorshin.
Yeah,
right.
and I really liked it. I know people like you.
No, I like it. It's just
people like Matt.
It's not exactly it's not subtle.
Well, look, and for the topic,
it's laughably entertaining.
For the topic of the end of the world, it's the end of their planet as they know it.
That's true.
But if you're looking for
it's
something
it's their end of their planet.
Smart and sober, it's not that.
Look, it is not. It's not testament.
James,
it's a really good. It would be a really good, serious Lost in Space.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
No, I don't think it has any.
It would have made a great Lost in Space.
I know it would have won an Emmy.
Okay, well, okay. Let's laugh at my expense. That's great.
There is one.
We're not laughing at you. We're laughing at that episode.
Yeah,
there is one I'd like to throw in, and it's recent.
A Star Trek episode?
No, it's from 2013, and it's a comedy. It's called "This Is the End."
Well, that's great.
That
I have
Seth
not
Rogen
seen this.
directed.
Yeah. I know the premise. It sounds great.
No, it's totally fun.
Because they're playing themselves.
They play themselves
Yes.
at their own expense. It's like they're making fun of Michael Cera and James Franco, and they drag them all through the mud. And that's the real entertainment value of the movie.
It's them playing themselves, trying to survive the rapture.
That's a funny
The
idea.
rapture?
Some sinkhole opens in Seth Rogen's living room or something.
Yeah, no, it's like literally like the biblical end of the world is happening.
Right.
They're like hyper ridiculous Hollywood selves.
Egotistic.
Everyone's an egomaniac.
And they're all shitting on each other.
Yeah, it's really fun.
It's fun. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
Me too.
Yeah, so check that one out. This is the end.
Yeah. If we're talking comedies, I'm going to go way back
All right.
to 1969, a film by Richard Lester. You might have heard of him.
Oh, yes.
Hard Day's Night. Hello?
Yes.
The Bed Sitting Room.
Oh yeah.
Wait, you like that?
I love that movie.
That's a strange. It's
very strange.
Not
It's not.
I did not like that
It
movie.
is not for everyone, but
is not for me.
It is satirical.
Yes.
And you got a lot of guys from the Goon Show involved with it. You've got Harry Seacombe. Spike Milligan actually wrote the original play that I guess it's based on. A lot of really great legends of British comedy are in it. You got Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, Marty Feldman.
But it's not like knee slap. It's not like
It's not
Three
that kind of-
Stooges.
no,
It's kind of.
It's not the Three Stooges.
Well, no, Larry, it's not the Three Stooges. No, there's some thought behind it. Maybe a little bit more. I like the Stooges as well as the next guy.
love the Stooges.
This is different.
I'm not saying that I need it to be like the Stooges. It's just I remember.
There's some very
Oh my God!
There's some very funny scenes in that movie. For example, at one point, this guy has this. Everyone is living in squalor in this wasteland, and this guy's got this seat in what looks like just a rubbish dump, and he's got this chair and a door. And the door is, of course, connected to nothing. And he gets a knock on the door. And on the other side is a guy with, like, the only thing that's left of his outfit is, like, the top part. And it's of, like, a suit, like a three-piece suit. And the rest is just tatters. And he goes, hello? He goes, yes, I'm the BBC. And he walks in, and he's got, like, this hollowed-out television. So he gets behind the television and starts giving this guy the news.
So it's kind of like Monty Python sketches in some ways.
A lot of really funny stuff. And then the name, The Bed Sitting Room, is that what happens with radiation is that eventually the radiation gets so bad that it will turn you into a bed sitting room.
Oh God.
It's very surreal.
It's very
and bizarre.
surreal. It's very strange.
The comedy is a different kind of
yeah, it
comedy
is,
because
yeah.
it wasn't. You know what, Matt? It wasn't my cup of tea.
No,
Okay, right.
and that's fine. And it might take a little thought, possibly, and a certain
so
sensitivity.
If you want really comedy,
It's
like
not-
really funny stuff, it's
yeah,
not
no. If
that
you
kind
want
of
a
film.
knee slapper,
Yeah.
it's not that.
Mo sticking, poking
Yeah,
Larry's
it's
eyes
not really
out.
meant to be
Yeah.
that.
Well, guys, if we're talking monster movies, though, we have to mention The Day the World Ended, 1956. by
I was
Roger Corman.
waiting. I
I
was
love that
waiting
movie.
That's
for
a
you to get
fantastic
to
movie.
that.
Yeah, because that's your classic. It's a bunch of people stuck in a house that's protected by the radiation because they're
It's in a valley.
Yeah. So it's Richard Denning, Laurie Nelson, Paul Birch, Mike Connors, and of course the radiation.
Touch Connors.
Touch Connors. That's right. And it's of course there's been a Holocaust or whatever, and of course the radiation is turning some people into these crazy monster mutants.
Three eyes,
designed by
just the way you like
the
it.
great Paul Blaisdell. Great classic, low budget Roger Corman movie.
Yeah, and Touch Connors, Mike Connors, plays
He's
exactly what you want him to do,
Yeah.
which is just the absolute worst
Asshole
of humanity.
thug. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
Terrible to his girlfriend.
Adele Jurgens, I
Yeah,
think.
and
Yeah.
like hitting on the other girl while his
yeah,
girlfriend
yeah.
is watching,
Yeah.
and tries to knife people. And it's one of the most frustrating thing about that movie is that after the first time his knife comes out, kill him, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're like, why even
Yeah,
bring this
why
guy
is he
near the
hanging
house?
around? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
But
a
I
great
do
one.
love that one. That's a great one. In fact, I have the one sheet of that.
Oh, great.
The original one sheet.
We talk a lot about Logan's Run as being like the 1977 release that was the big sci-fi movie right before Star Wars, but there was another 20th Century Fox release from 1977 that was science fiction. It was called Damnation Alley.
Oh, yes. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
I was 12. I remember the commercials. I had never seen it. I knew it had a Jerry Goldsmith score, and
Of course you did.
and it was like, well, that's the golden age. Goldsmith did Logan's Run too.
Yes,
Right,
yes,
right.
he did.
I only just saw it the other day to sort of catch up.
Yeah.
And wow,
That movie,
pretty awful.
That movie,
Yeah.
the movie is fun. It has a great cast, but almost like all the effects across the board, the special effects of that movie don't work. They're just terrible. The vehicle is cool,
Yeah.
but most of the time it's a little model kit and it just looks like it. And like the miniature work doesn't quite look right. None of the special effects really work. But the cast. Jan Michael Vincent,
Michael
George
Vincent,
Papard,
yeah.
One of the
Paul
greatest actors of our time. yeah.
Paul Winfield, Jackie Earl Haley. It's a fun cast.
Fun?
when you-
well, yeah,
when you
fun.
I do enjoy it. I mean-
that movie defies me every time I watch it.
Really?
I try to watch it
If
and
you're in
go,
the right
"Hey, this
mindset."
is going to be fun." Right mindset.
And every
What,
time I
like
see
three
George,
sheets to the wind
George
No,
Papard,
on acid.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
thinking,
That's what you need to
Thank you.
do.
If you go with low expectations.
George Papard in that vehicle with a crew, I'm thinking the A-Team.
Yeah, it's the
like
A-Team of the
Shadow
future.
A-Team.
Yeah. If only.
Here we come.
And putting even when I was 12, I thought Jan Michael Vincent and Jackie Earl Haley, those three names. It's like I'm confused already.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's
there's too many names.
It was a strange way to depict the end of the world too. Like there's cockroaches that attack people, and the sky's red. And
Yeah.
Well,
it's
that's
just
one
a
too, where
weird-
is it all of a sudden it just clears up. Like, okay,
yeah.
in Albany.
yeah.
yeah. It's goofy, yeah. But I have a soft spot.
Well,
for
here's
it.
another kind of goofy one that I like way more than Damnation Alley, and that I think Shawn Sheridan will agree with me on is The Ultimate Warrior.
Oh, yeah.
1975, starring Yul Brynner.
Yes, that's a fun one.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen that,
and,
Matt.
And
Oh, that's
Max
a-
von Sydow.
That's a badass one.
And that's really cool. And it's like you never really get a full explanation of what happened to the world, but it was like some sort of environmental thing that like we're the cause of.
Yeah.
And the earth has gone to shit. And so now you have like it's very Road Warrior-ish in the sense that
Kinda
they're
grim, too.
Yeah, it's very grim. And there's like in the city there are these certain buildings, and one is like the good building where all the
Yeah.
people who like grow plants and are still
And
into
Max von
science.
Sydow is trying to,
and
like,
Max von Sydow is
keep
the
civilization
guy,
together.
trying to keep it all together. And then across the street is the horrible building
Run
and
by
they're-
William Smith.
William Smith,
Yeah.
who plays exactly who William Smith
plays William
plays in
Smith.
everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're terrible, and then they're at war, and then all of a sudden, very much like an old Western, here comes Yul Brynner,
Who's awesome.
who is this badass fighter.
And he just his first appearance in the movie is great. He just kind of comes up and like stands still, like silently, and just stands there. And,
it's very Yojimbo, where he just walks into town and kind of waits for someone to contact him.
Yeah.
And finally, the good guys do. And he's like, okay, I'll go with them. Yeah, and he becomes their fighter.
Yeah,
right.
Written and directed by Robert Klaus, who did Enter the Dragon.
That's right.
Yeah. It's one of those kind of low budget, grim, gritty, urban, 70s movie. But it's funny. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yul Brynner is great.
It's
a lot. Yul Brynner is wonderful, and it is fun. It's not the greatest movie you'll ever see.
It's a good drive-in flick.
But it's a very good drive-in flick. Yes. Yeah. Any others?
How about the last couple of movies directed by Roland Emmerich? And I know that, we haven't seen those necessarily, but the one that I did see was The Day After Tomorrow.
I think I started watching that on TV one night. I'm like, it's basically just a CGI fest of destruction, but then I just get bored and turn the channel.
I know. Let's destroy the Hollywood sign with a tornado.
Yeah,
and then it just follows.
It's like I don't know. I just can't.
But I will say one kind of remarkable thing about The Day After Tomorrow is that I'd seen it in the theater, and it's like, eh. And then I was at a promotion for Blu-ray when Blu-ray was first being introduced, and they had a reel to highlight the advantages of Blu-ray, and they showed scenes from different movies, and one of them was The Day After Tomorrow. And it was the earthquake scene, and there was an apartment that was being ravaged by an earthquake, and there was a shelf with glasses and vases on it. And everything else in the apartment was falling down, but none of the glasses and vases were falling off the shelf. And I'm thinking, you know what? Looking at this over and over again on this loop, they just shook the camera. Those cheap bastards, all they did was shake the camera. They didn't bother to shake the shelf.
Right. Wow.
It's even nowadays. The oldest trick in the book. Yeah. It's an earthquake.
It makes me dislike the movie even more now.
Right. Yeah.
And you haven't even seen it.
No.
Well, to me, that's also, I think, because those movies, they really are just hollow spectacles of the effects of it. The opposite of what we've been talking about.
They have no heart.
The movies that deal with people and what it's all about.
Because they did another one, 2012, to take advantage of the whole Aztec prophecy of the end of the world.
And San Andreas, which was the earthquake one with The Rock. And it's because now with technology, you can
do
make all that
anything.
so realistic. Yeah. But you watch a movie like 5 or Panic in Year Zero, and it's just about the people, and it's so much more compelling.
Yeah, this is what it should be.
We're researching all this, and I was looking up post-apocalyptic movies or just end-of-the-world movies.
Yeah.
And one that came up on a number of lists was Kiss Me Deadly.
Yeah. Yeah,
and it made me rethink that movie a little bit, because Kiss Me Deadly, you have the, dare I say, trope that's been used in a lot of movies where it's the suitcase that has something in it that everyone's trying to get, but nobody knows what it is. And in this one, there's some sort of nuclear material that's in this case. And Kiss Me Deadly, directed by Robert Aldrich, 1955.
Ralph Meeker
as Mike Hammer, who, if you see one movie with Ralph Meeker,
that is it.
This is it. He is great.
In that.
And he is a bad ass.
Yes.
And this is classic film noir. It's not sci-fi.
At its most classic and raw.
It's so great, but he's following the suitcase all the way through the film and trying to figure out what's going on with this whole scenario. And finally, at the end, the suitcase is opened and this nuclear incident happens. So you don't know really what the aftermath is.
Is it more the end of the world or is it the end of L.A.?
Is it the end of L.A.? Is it, what is...
it's strange.
What are the ramifications of this incident?
Yeah,
I don't interpret it as L.A. I actually interpret it as a smaller area. Personally,
a nuclear, but if it's a thing that blows up a house, that means that radiation then went over all of LA.
That's interesting, though.
Well, it was kind of by the beach, so maybe more of Malibu.
Well, we don't know. And what I'm saying is, if it that would
Cher's house was,
but the fact that it comes up in that
Barbara Streisand's house might have been.
So
but the fact that it's included,
it's a happy ending.
The fact that it's included in the genre, though, in some cases, as an end of the world.
I think that's interesting. The idea that maybe maybe at the end of that movie, it is the end of the world.
Right.
But we don't really know. It ends very abruptly.
Yeah.
Well, there was another movie with nukes in a suitcase from 1982, and it was called Wrong is Right with Sean Connery.
I thought you were going to say something else.
Well, it was meant to be a satire on media, directed by Richard Brooks, who had done a lot of other better movies. And the one thing I remember about it, I saw it in a theater, but the only thing I remember about it was that it had the simulated destruction of Manhattan. That was one of the most awesome things I had ever seen special effects wise.
Really?
It was like, wow, if a nuclear device went off in Manhattan, that's exactly what it would look like. And I don't remember if it was a simulation or if it actually happened in the narrative of the movie.
I didn't see it, but I've heard of the movie before. It's kind of like a crazy kind of weird parody, right? 'Cause
Right,
I know it has
yeah.
Robert Conrad in it as General Wombat.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
It's got a lot of people in it.
It's-
Leslie Nielsen, John Saxon, Henry Silva. John Saxon and Henry Silva in the same movie.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I don't know if I could recommend it.
I think it bombed
It's-
when it came out.
Yeah, it did.
Bombed.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think I was the only person who paid to see it, actually.
Yeah.
So you're bringing up another film that you can't exactly recommend. Is that what you're
But it
saying?
falls under the end of the world.
Or-
yeah, it does.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
does.
This is great.
For our comic book fans, Marvel did a number of books called The End. There were a bunch of them, but there were two that really stood out, and they all kind of deal in some way or another with the end of the world or an end of the universe or something like that. But the two that I really enjoyed were, there was a Hulk one called The End, and there was a nuclear holocaust, and the Hulk is the only thing left on the planet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that
And
makes sense.
Yeah,
That's pretty
yeah,
awesome.
and you see him, and he is messed up too because he always has there's these giant cockroaches that attack him all the time. But they're not. They damage him. You can see that there's some kind of pulpy areas of his skin that show that he's been wounded, but nothing to really kill him because
Right.
he kind of really can't be
Yeah,
killed.
right.
And it gets to a point where you finally realize that if he ever becomes Bruce Banner again, he'll just die.
Oh, that's interesting.
So he has to stay the Hulk.
Wow, that's really
and,
interesting.
and he gets to a place where without Banner, he's all alone. And so what does he do? And it's just it's a really interesting story. And they also did sir?
No, isn't there a point where like he finds a bunch of books and he's wearing his glasses?
Yeah. That's right, yeah.
And then the glasses break.
Not fair.
Time enough last. There's also a Punisher one that they do.
Really?
Where
Wow.
the
How
Punisher
did he survive?
So the thing is he's in jail.
Okay.
He's in Sing Sing.
Solitary confinement or something?
They've got him because he's the Punisher, so he's locked
Right.
very high security. And it's the end of the world. Nuclear bomb goes off, and he gets out, and he's still the Punisher. He still has his mission. Radiation, as the story goes along, is you could tell kind of driving him even crazier.
Yeah.
But he's got this guy from the prison who's on this journey with him. And what happens is that he's going across the land trying to get the guys that did this.
Okay.
So he ends up finding this little enclave, this little bunker where all the government is still alive. Takes him out.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's cool. And those are two
What
really
clever idea.
Yeah,
to take
really
the characters.
Yeah,
and do
really
that.
really fun.
Well, in the realm of comic books, also, we should maybe mention Watchmen, Alan
yeah,
Moore's
yeah.
Watchmen,
Oh, true.
which
That's-
is in
that's-
itself a countdown to a potential nuclear
That's true.
cataclysm
That's true.
that is narrowly averted in the story.
And in the movie, the cataclysm ends up being Dr. Manhattan, who was
Right.
used as the counterbalance.
Right.
Right.
Which is not a bad little twist on it.
No,
I thought it was
that
actually
kinda
better
worked
than the original.
Right.
pretty well. Yeah, that's cool.
All right.
Well, we could go on and on.
I think we did.
We have.
Is this the end?
Oh, nice. I've never been more proud of you guys.
Well, what I have to say
a
is
small and
is
insignificant podcast is now dead.
I think you guys have brought up some really interesting films that I want to see.
It's definitely a genre that
some that I
spans so much.
and some I don't want to see or read. But
Me
you guys definitely have, and there's a lot of cool end of the world films and books and stuff
Yeah,
out there.
yeah.
And
It's
hopefully
interesting.
our listeners will get some.
Yeah.
and I hope
into
that if we have to go, we go together.
That's right.
as we're doing our podcast.
Yeah. I want to be in the bunker with you guys.
I have a feeling we will.
Yeah.
Doing our after the apocalypse monster party.
Well, you know
For
what?
you three people.
Well, you know what? As long as there's booze, I'm there.
But no, but then
Well
the,
said.
But then the sound will go out and be, it's not fair. It's not fair. The recording stopped.
Libsyn broke down.
This is great.
iTunes is no more.
And now, on a lighter note, how about some bloopers?
the guy who signed me up said, Morgan Fairchild works out here. I'm like, well, that's cool. So I kept my eyes open for Morgan Fairchild. I finally saw her one day, but I saw one guy working out and was like, oh, Jesus, I think I've seen that guy before. And it was a porn star named Tom Byron.
Oh, yeah. I remember that guy.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's so weird when you see a porn star in public because it's like, oh.
Why aren't you fucking something?
It's like, I'm sure.
Why are you ruining this for me?
I'm sure you don't want to be recognized.
Should you do some level testing?
Yeah, I think everybody sounds pretty good.
Hello.
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 A little higher.
Hi.
Am I good? Am I good?
Yes, you sound good.
Okay, cool.
Hello.
Sean, you sound
Every single
Hello.
show.
Yes.
Every single show.
Good to go.
Do I sound all right?
Show.
Matt, by the way, I replaced the thing with Cornelius there, or Galen, or Caesar.
How dare you make artistic changes?
Are we going to be like that?
Yeah, no.
Seriously?
He's trying to steal the whole
I thought
show.
We were
I thought it would be more
It
thematic.
went from me
It's for the
to
pictures.
Sean, then it finally landed on you, and now it's James's show.
It's the pictures. If it was always my show, let's face it.
Because you got a lot to say for this show, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Now
good.
you know the drill. You've been here before. We've done this.
Yeah.
Podcast.
Let's over-explain it a little bit more.
No, I just said, he introduced the show, we introduced ourselves, the topic, we introduced the guest.
I won't talk until
He's
You're spoken to.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
talking cue.
and at the end, like we say, is there anything you want to pitch? I don't know if you want
And
to.
that is when you will pitch the thing you've come to pitch.
Okay.
And actually, it'll be good timing for your special because
I mean, is that
this
cool? Is
posting
that okay?
Monday. It's posting
No,
Monday.
This Monday.
Is what okay? To
If
plug
you
at the
pitch,
end?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No,
Great.
thank you. Yeah, no, I want to plug the special.
It'll be perfect.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, should
Okay.
he say a specific date,
You
or he should?
He can.
Are
He could.
talking way too much. You.
Okay, I'll shut up.
We're going to start
shut
the
up.
show.
But I'm turning over a
9:00.
new leaf. A new leaf.
I don't believe you.
No. I've been listening to our some comments. And apparently, I've
Don't do
been-
that either, though.
No,
don't let that affect you.
No,
Apparently,
Larry.
Apparently,
No.
everybody hates you.
Don't let them change you, man.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is that what you read into that?
No, I just said that.
Don't let them
No,
change you.
no. Is
Okay.
that no? Do you really believe that?
You've got to ignore the haters. Ignore
It's
the
not-
haters.
no, it's not.
We all love you, and that's all that matters.
It's not you don't love me.
We do love you.
What
We
it
love
is-
you, and everybody loves you. And there's one or two bad apples, and don't listen to them.
Yes.
Joe has to leave in 10
shit,
minutes.
yes.
Let's go.
We can
ready to
start
go.
this fucking thing.
Do you know what the topic is?
Apocalypse.
Yes, he knows what the topic is.
Wait, is that what it is?
Oh my God. And our topic today. Oh my God. What the fuck? I can't believe that. How the rotary phone? Really? We have a rotary phone in case of emergencies.
Aren't you going to get
Commissioner.
that?
Hold on one second.
Aren't you going to get that?
Bloopers.
Yes, hold on. Now let's all.
It's NORAD.
Right.
And the dog is voiced by Tim McIntyre, I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Such a great voice.
Who is amazing.
Yeah.
And the dog is. Oh, you got to be kidding me.
What are the chances?
You take out the hook.
Wow.
I
It's the
think
first. This never happens.
I think that's Dana Gould.
That's 2 in a row. That's weird.
Wrong number.
Yes. Hey, hello.
Maybe it's Mark Pita this time.
What are the odds of somebody calling on the bat phone?
Really?
Right in the middle of a show.
But twice.
Twice.
That's, yeah.
Joe, allow me to apologize because it's very unprofessional
Maybe the
for us
the Riddler's
to
escaped.
have our show to be interrupted by the ringing of a phone.
I could care less.
Okay.
It doesn't bother me.
That's what I like about you. Nothing. It just kind of rolls off your sleeve, doesn't it?
This is one of the things that does.
Right.
One of the few things that does.
Right.
I usually get wound up about stuff.
It's an act of
But-
God,
I've been on my own podcast telling the listeners that they should be grateful that I'm even bothering to do this. 'Cause it's essentially thankless. I mean, it's nice. The fans write you and stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody's making I guess some people make a living off of it, but
But
five.
It's really
Yeah.
it's really good. It's an excuse for us to get together. And,
I'm looking towards the future, my friend.
Yes.
That's what I am
see a
doing.
bonus
I'm
if
trying
something
to.
comes out of it,
I'm trying to. But I don't care at
So
all.
what about hecklers though? Like when people go, you clown. I mean, when you're up there, you know, and you're doing your
on stage.
Yeah. Do you go, hey? Yeah.
What do you want to? Does it bother me?
Yeah. Or they just fire back and you go, "Hey, leave your collar outside." Or what? Like, do you have like things? I don't know. He's a comedian. Do you have certain things that you say?
I don't really have stock things that I say because
you roll with it.
It always
right?
changes, you know. But I used to when I first started. I would write comeback lines because when you first experience it, it's like you go into a freeze. You don't know what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
But you know, it's funny. 9 times out of 10, it's some drunk that's having a good time, not really trying to be shitty.
Right.
So that's
they're getting caught up in it, and they're just kind of
and you kind of just have to navigate it that way. 'Cause it sucks when you snap at somebody and they're like, they're just dumb, but they were trying to have fun.
That never worked for me when I was doing stand up. I would always do this thing where I would just kind of like engage them to death, where they would want to stop talking to me, like because I'd start interviewing them.
Right.
Turn it back to them.
Yeah.
Right.
So was that important? Call was that?
No, I don't know what the hell was going on tonight.
Now I can hear the phone go beep beep beep.
You
beep,
can?
beep. I can.
It'll stop.
No. It's gonna go for a while. See, I can hear it.
As long as you can't,
I can hear it.
You can take a little plug.
It annoys me.
It
It annoys me. I don't like it.
You could unplug it from behind.
I can't concentrate.
If you just
find this.
if you just unplug the receiver, right?
I find this totally unacceptable.
From the bottom? No? There you go.
Oh, thank God.
Watch the smoke alarm would go off.
No. Then all of a sudden there's going to be a knock on the door.
Yeah.
It's Dana Gould. Well, I've been calling your phone. You haven't been picking up. You okay?
On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
Keep America strong.
Watch movies about the apocalypse before it's... Oh, you stupid mother. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Are you serious? He didn't even finish his line.
Oh, my God.
You forgot. He's sitting right next to you.
You know what? You know what? I'll tell you the person I do not want in charge of the button.
Little too quick with the...
Jump the gun, Sheridan.
That's right, boy. Man.
Okay,
fuck.
redo.
All
So
right,
after
here
you
we go.
say... Okay.
Yeah, after I'm done doing the thing we just discussed.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
All right, let's try this again.
Come on, we're better than this.
We are better than this.
Are we?
All right.
Yes,
No.
yes,
Oh my God.
yes, we are.
Okay, we are.
Yes,
We are.
we
We
are.
are. I agree.
Yes, we are.